And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, we're live.
All right, good morning, everybody. We already got our friends, listeners here with us already. It's Friday, everybody. I don't know who this is, but we got a newcomer here. Yabba Dabba Dabba, VSS Fintores. We got King Cujo, Nighthawk 13666, always doing roll call for us. Good morning, brother. Outstanding. Joe Mango, how you doing, brother? And of course, M. Franco, Michael Freed, CM Lurdo. Who's our favorite? Juju, Michael Freed, outstanding. M. Franco. We're already weighing in. Cactus Chell 314. How we doing, everybody? Listen, it's Friday. Let's get into it and go and enjoy our weekend at 8:05 Eastern Time and 5:05 Pacific Time. Let's talk about who's next on the bench or who's our next batter. Right? We had a great statement by Mayor Eric Adams. Awesome statement, right, John? He's got a fantastic bench, but yet
huge. Bench is huge.
Mayor Eric Adams is the craziest things. He's got an amazing bench, so good that we have to get an outside batter. So speaking of the outside, the next batter that's at the plate is New York City Sheriff Anthony Miranda. We're going to get into that. So, John, let's do it, brother.
Yeah, we got a bunch of stuff. First of all, we got the COVID czar, Steven Crowder, the Mug Club. I think he does a phenomenal job. He sets up the COVID czar, right? He has a girl speak to him. He thinks he's going on dates with her. He starts telling him all the stuff that happened on COVID, how scared he was around COVID. Talks about all of the freak-out parties that they were having in New York City. Drug-fueled, Molly-fueled drug parties, which is basically ecstasy. So he talks about that. We're also going to talk about John Chell's retirement plans because that's basically becoming big news. And we also have the union, the sheriff's union, calling for Sheriff Miranda to resign. So we got a lot of stuff. What do you guys want to talk about first? I don't care. I mean, there's so much stuff. I mean, we got a million things to go on. Well,
Loud Labs, New York City, already weighed in with us. I appreciate it. He says, I interviewed Sheriff at the drug race before. So, hey, Loud Labs, if there's anything you want to comment on, weigh in when it comes to Sheriff Miranda, feel free to do so. We appreciate it. Let's start with Anthony Miranda. Why not? Let's get right into it.
All right. So let me get that up on the screen. So right now, Anthony Miranda is he's the sheriff in New York City. He's appointed. Sheriff's not an elected position. He is spearheading this COVID enforcement. What we've said on this show numerous times to be very arbitrary and capricious. He's also been pictured with a Latino association that's helping Latino business Latino business owners to secure marijuana licenses. So that's it's pretty weird to be working with a fraternal organization when you're going to be in charge of the enforcement of it. The nightlife mayor, or the executive director of the Office of Nightlife, was actually, or is, I don't know if he is or was, the president of that same organization. And I'll bring all that stuff up, but I just gotta bring that in. But right now, we just had a city council meeting happen, and the union president of that city council meeting had called for Miranda's resignation, which something you never really heard, right? I've never seen a union leader go up at a city council meeting and talk about how the sheriff was completely abusive. I do have an article here about it as well. It came out in the Daily News, and New York City's Deputy Sheriff's Union calling on Sheriff Anthony Miranda to resign over a hostile work environment. Eric, do you know anything about Miranda?
You know what I know about Miranda is this, and this I was going to ask you, John. I mean, if you were Mayor Eric Adams and you had friends in your circle, would Miranda, with already the shroud and cloud of suspicion that's already been surrounded by him of irregularities, that's a hard word to say, when it comes to his campaign donations, was that a guy that you would want in your circle? He's already had suspicion about campaigns donations he's had to his own campaign, where he's donated in the past to his own donation and received interest on his own loan. Is this someone that we want in our circle? Again, Mayor Eric Adams has his choice of appointments is quite interesting. He always picks people that are shrouded by bad judgment. Speaking of comments here, Crazy107, thank you so much for donating to the podcast. As always, $4.99 weekly crumbs, boys. I guess we get our crumbs. We appreciate it. John, I mean, seriously, is this a friend that you put in your circle, already known, especially the sheriffs when they do warrants, they're recovering money? Is this someone you want in your circle?
Well, I mean, let's talk about Miranda's police career, right? I believe if I'm not mistaken, I believe he retired as a sergeant in the NYPD. He was a rebel rouser in the NYPD. He was a police reform advocate in the NYPD. So basically, he was a big fat zero politician, the same way that Eric Adams was. So while Eric Adams is running 100 blacks in law enforcement, I believe Miranda was the president. I forget what organization. I don't want to say it, but for some Latino organization,
National Officers Latino Association.
There you go. Yeah, NOLA. He was the president of NOLA. So he was a rebel rouser. He wasn't somebody that you would actually want in your circle for anything, you know. So, but that's every single person that Eric Adams appoints is somebody like this dude. So yeah, absolutely not. I wouldn't want him around me. And let's not forget, he was pushing this, another guy that was attempting to flout the COVID rules when he was pushing this invisible mask. And so again, all of us peasants had to follow the rules, right? I couldn't do anything. I couldn't take my kids to the Bronx Zoo. I couldn't take them to a Christmas party. I wasn't allowed in any Christmas parties. I wasn't allowed in any restaurants in New York City. I mean, I still went. There was a lot of places that, there was a lot of places that just didn't follow the rules. And those are places I still go till today. And those are mainly the places that stayed open too, because they didn't listen to these idiots. And then the places that follow the rules, we couldn't go, right? And so what Anthony Miranda helped push was this invisible mask. And what the invisible mask was it was just a card. It was like a business. It was like a card, and you could just put it in your pocket, and it supposedly protected all around you from COVID. I mean, it was the biggest scam going, and it was basically done to flout the COVID rules. And now this is the guy that you're putting in charge of doing the enforcement for COVID rules, for rules and regulations around marijuana. So again, it's just more low integrity people around each other.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I make the correlation, it's quite simple, but when it came to his own campaign financing, that he provided his own loan, and he received some interest on it. It was a small amount that was looked back into, but as that's someone that you want as the sheriff, because they're making apprehensions and recoveries of large sums of money. That's not someone I would want, And also his affiliations with New York State Senator Hiram Monserrate. That's another thing that shows the cloud of judgment and suspicions. I mean, Monserrate is like the Teflon Don. He seems to get out of everything, even being a domestic abuser. But is this someone that you want in your circle? Again, Eric Adams appoints everyone in his circle that has a sketchy past, that's a rebel rouser, that has it cannot be trusted when it comes to money, and has nefarious friends around them. Anthony Miranda's friend, Hiram Monserrate, he's a nefarious character. Anthony Miranda, he's a nefarious character himself. But this is everyone that's appointed by Mayor Eric Adams. But it also shows, John, what we've been speaking about is that the mayor of New York City has far too much power. These are not elected official positions. These are appointed positions. And that's somewhere we need to get back to the drawing board and have people elected in New York City, not necessarily appointed. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Mayor Eric Adams. It's corruption scandal after corruption scandal. Now we see a cloud of suspicion, a probe going on in a church involving Frank Carone. I mean, it's one after another, brother.
Yeah, so just real quick, I'll go through this article real quick, and then I'll bring up a video about this. So New York, this came out, or I believe this came out in June. So this has been going on a while, but we just had a city council meeting late last week where we got to see the sheriff testify, and it was pretty awful. Not for nothing, but he absolutely, completely incompetent, has no business running the sheriff's office. But that's like everybody else in the.
That was terrible.
It's like everybody else, you know. So members of the New York City Sheriff's Association are demanding Anthony Miranda's resignation, claiming he has created a hostile work environment that has led to an exodus of rank and file members. Sounds familiar. In documented complaints against Miranda, the union has claimed the city sheriff has discriminated and retaliated against union members. For approximately the last year, Miranda and the executive board have engaged in actions questionable legal basis, have unilaterally instituted changes, have endangered the safety of deputies, according to a complaint filed with the Office of Collective Bargaining. They have interfered with restraint and coerced the union's members' exercise of their rights. Miranda's draconian mandates, unsanctioned changes to employees scheduled, and laser focus on raiding illicit pot shops over the agency's other duties have made working as a deputy sheriff unattainable, according to the union president. Our members have simply left because they are not going to work for a tyrant who runs the agency with an iron fist, union president Ingrid Simikoff told the New York Daily News. Morale is incredibly low since he got here, and 37 deputy sheriffs have left. The others are waiting for another agency to call before they go. So 37, that's a lot because there's only about 100 and something of them. So you're talking like a 20-30% hit. So it's very familiar to the Dream Team or the Gotham Brothers, as we like to call them. Because of Sheriff Miranda's mishandling of the sheriff's office, mistreatment of our members, retaliatory actions against the union, and creation of a hostile work environment, the union demands his resignation, she said. A call to Miranda about the union allegations would not return. Mayor Eric Adams selected the politically connected Miranda to take over the city sheriff office in May of 22. Before becoming the city sheriff, Miranda was a police department sergeant, director of security for the Administration of Child Services, and a longtime head of the National Latino Officers Association. Over the past 2 years, the union has lodged 13 complaints against Miranda and his executives with the Office of Collective Bargaining and the Public Employee Safety and Health Bureau, the New York's Department of Finance Equal Opportunity Commission Office, the State Equal Opportunity Commission Office, and the New York's Office of Labor Relations about workplace misconduct. In comparison, the union only filed one labor complaint in the 4 years leading up to Miranda's employment. Unreal.
You know what makes it strange, John, is that in most cases we see in New York City, especially when it comes to unions, particularly the NYPD, we see them buttoning up to the administration. We see them buttoning up, pretty much in bed with the enemy. So it must be pretty bad, honestly, John. It must be a real hostile environment. It must be over the top for the unions to actually put themselves out there in this battle against Anthony Miranda, who's the sheriff. So it must be terrible at this time. But again, this is someone that's a rebel rouser, was not much of a cop, kind of fits in lockstep with Eric Adams, who wasn't much of a cop either. We have all these people that were in law enforcement and didn't do any law enforcement, but with Eric Adams in their appointments, they become czars and they become tyrannical. It's interesting to see the hypocrisy and the paradox when it comes to this administration.
Yeah, I mean, the police unions should be doing this at this point, though. We have cops leaving left and right. There are numerous allegations about these people. Let's just take John Chell, for example. John Chell's office, well, after last week, I think he got humbled a little bit, but now it looks like he's about to get a promotion. He just put out he's not retiring. So I'm going to make the bet that he's your next chief of department, which is insane because that just shows how you can fail forward in the New York City Police Department. But all up until last week, every time John Chell walked in his office as the chief of patrol, his office had to give him a standing ovation like he was Stalin. Think about that. Every time the man walks, is that a normal work environment for anyone? Everyone knows what's going on. All of the unions know what's going on. And that's just the little things. What about all the transfers from Kaz Daughtry because people didn't salute at him, or he thought they laughed at him on the phone, or he thought something happened, or he thought they gave him a bad look? These people are wackos. So it just shows what's going on, how bad it actually is. This is something that the police unions should have been doing as well, but they haven't, and all of them have complaints about that. We've had inspectors, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, cops, detectives, all who have been abused by this administration, and the unions have remained silent, have said nothing, actually cheered it on.
It is abusive, and it's an annoyance, right? That's why we have kind of the unwritten rule when it comes to the police department, even the military, right? In the military, it would be ridiculous, right? If you pass by your commanding officer, whatever, in the military, and you were just constantly saluting every second, that would be absolutely ridiculous. It would look stupid. It would be annoying. So one salute for the day, maybe one salute in the morning as a courtesy, and one salute at the close of the day. That makes sense. So the same thing for the police department. It's a paramilitary organization. If every time someone above the rank of deputy inspector walked into the precinct and you had to stand at attention and call attention all day, it would be ridiculous. I mean, if you had an inspector as your commanding officer, and every time you walked into the precinct, you had to call attention 50 times a day, it would be it's an annoyance. And no longer is it even a courtesy at that point. It's just stupid and it's abusive, So yeah, this is even far more to have people give you a standing ovation and a forced standing ovation. To me, that shows you have no care and compassion. You really don't care about people. If you could actually just abuse them in that manner and just get your kicks off and humiliate them, it shows a lot about yourself. But it is interesting. It did appear that John Chell was quite humbled. That press conference we saw, that was a different John Chell. But it's started to see that it might be weeding off a little bit, and they're starting to revert back to themselves. Zebras don't change their stripes. I'm a firm believer in that. So, we had unconfirmed reports. John put out an amazing tweet about Jeffrey Madry and John Chell, about unconfirmed reports about John Chell and Chief Madry retiring. I still believe that is coming soon, depending on the movement of this new interim PC. But in the meantime, it is possible that John Chell does get a bump as an interim in the meantime while things are getting cleaned out. And I'm sure he's pretty excited by that. That's the only reason I could see him hanging on to this cliff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into that yet, but while you're on it, let's talk about that real quick. It doesn't appear that John Chell is going to retire. This has came out. I don't know why this went so viral, but he's telling everyone now, like, this came out. This was on New York One this morning. John Chell's retirement plans with this tweet. Right, receiving unconfirmed reports that both NYPD Chief of Department Jeffrey Madry and NYPD Chief of Patrol, both pictured below, appeared at 233 Broadway today and filed for retirement amidst a federal corruption probe. So this tweet comes out. I put that tweet out because I had reports that packing up their office and they were at 233 Broadway, which I have no reason to believe was not the case, considering I've been pretty spot on about everything. And we all know that John Chell had a offer from Newsmax, a very high offer to be head security and do so. He was leaving. Both of them were going to get 3/4 for more than likely not an injury related to police work, but their poor health. But they were going to get 3/4. But John Chell last night had put something else out last night. What did he say last night? He says that he had to clear something up. Hold on, I'm going to pull up his tweet so I don't miss his words, so I'm not accused of spreading misinformation. Hi, everyone. It's at this point now that I have clear up another piece of information. I'm not retiring. Eventually one day, but not now. More work to be done, baby! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Hopefully this makes it easier to understand. LOL. So obviously what I see from here is John Chell is not only not leaving, he's more than likely going to be promoted. He's more than likely going to be the next chief of department. We may see something today, possibly. So yeah, I mean, I guess the panic's over. I guess a lot of people know where they fall. We did an episode a while back calling it the Fall Guy, and it was about John Chell and his absolutely ridiculous and dumb plan of having these rookies run around New York City and crash cars and run people over, and engaging in car pursuits. But I guess the Fall Guy was actually Ed Caban. Ed Caban stepped down. They should all step down because they all knew what was going on. They should all hang their head in shame about what happened, but yet they're going to celebrate themselves. And this guy's talking about more work to be done. I just wonder what kind of work he's talking about. Is it more work shaking down businesses, or is it actually anything related to public safety?
Sure, I see two things going on here. One, the obvious, John Chell no longer has access or is permitted to tweet or utilize social media on behalf of the police department on his chief of patrol Twitter handle. I mean, this is coming from his LinkedIn account. So is John Chell at this point, does he still even have access to his social media account? It's quite interesting. We've seen John Chell and Kaz Daughtry. They haven't tweeted much at all. I think it was 4 days. We didn't see it. 4 or 5 days. We didn't see a tweet at all from them. So complete different dynamics right now with John Chell. I do believe that if he's not going to retire, it's because of a promotion. But I do believe that promotion will be temporary while the interim PC is cleaning house. I do not believe that will be a temporary position. I think it will be short-lived. That's my prediction. I'm not sure if you think the same thing, John. But based on what I've seen in the military, you get an idea of how they clean house and how you start to make movements to the different pieces. This is the way that I see it. It's my opinion. Also, what I see right now from John Chell and Kaz Daughtry is definitely their power has been removed. They're operating differently. And could they keep up this tempo under the new interim PC? You know, are they playing a game? Because eventually when the interim PC leaves and we get someone else in that place, will they revert back to their old ways if they stay on? This is going to be interesting to watch as it unfolds.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's it for John Chell. He says he's not leaving. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out of that. I'm going to make the case if he's not leaving, if obviously the moment of panic is over, they know what's going to happen. That means to me that, well, half of that tweet was right. Half of that information was right. Jeffrey Maddrey was out. John Chell's offer must have got rescinded, and he got an offer to stay on chief of department. If I offered you a corporate job making $500,000 a year with your 3/4 for being fat and getting $24,000 a year, $24,000 a month on top of that, which is about $200 and something thousand pension a year plus $500,000, would you stay to be the chief of the department, or would you retire and take 3/4 for being fat?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to let myself get fat and stay in shape. But yeah, listen, but that I would take that job. So would you, John. I mean, that's a great opportunity. It only makes sense, right? You're not bound by the police department. You get to be out in the private sector. You're out in the media. You got a great job. You get to give your police perspective, which could help other people. But what does it show, John? What does it show our friends and listeners right now? It shows these guys really, they don't care about the money. Because honestly, if they cared about the money, these guys would have retired 10 years ago with a $20,000 pension. You can live a really nice life with that. And if you start investing right, whether Bitcoin or real estate, you can pretty much have passive income. But that's not what this is about. It's about power. And that's why Kaz Daughtry and John Chell, they thrive and they enjoy being the positions that they are. It's about status. It's about power. And that's what happens when we have weak, cowardice, inadequate, inept men in positions of power. It becomes abusive. We've seen it for the past 2 years. It's only gotten worse and worse. Thank God with this interim PC, we've seen a step back. But again, I believe zebras don't change their stripes. And when this interim PC is replaced by someone who's going to be permanent, will they revert back to their old ways? That's what I'm curious at. And John, I think it's a great thing that you pointed out. We've been speaking out. And this is the truth. Ed Caban has become the fall guy. We did think it was going to be John Chell when it comes to operations. But when it comes to a federal corruption probe, it turns out that Ed Caban is the fall guy. I mean, these guys stepped on him so fast. They put dirt on his grave so quick. There was so much loyalty when Ed Caban was the PC. Even though he was insignificant and he wasn't there was so much loyalty. And the second he was gone, they were already kissing up to the new interim PC. They put dirt over his grave and they stepped all over him. We don't hear a peep. We don't hear John Chell or Kaz Daughtry and anything say, you know what? We'd like to thank positions, and we'd like to thank things that we had under former PC Ed Caban. And at this time, he's a missed appointment. He's a missed position, and what we have missed and how we're going to go forward. We don't hear that. They stepped on his grave. Interim PC, we love you. This is what we have here. These are the men that we have in the police department.
Yeah, so let's get back to Miranda. So this is the head of the Sheriff's Union, Ingrid Simnikoff. Apologize if I said your name wrong. I believe that's how it's pronounced. She had a pretty long speech. It was pretty good. It was actually really good. If you guys get a chance, go back and listen to the speech from 9/17 on the Committees on Oversight and Investigation, City Council. I won't play the whole thing because it's too long, and I got a bunch of clips around this. But yeah, I mean, I never heard this in a city council meeting. I listen, like I said, I'm a geek when it comes to this shit. I listen to this shit while I work out, and I listen to shit while I'm running, or if I'm working on the house, or building something, or painting. Like, I'll listen to this. I was pretty shocked. One, I was shocked by his testimony. I was like, wow, this guy is dumb. I was like, wow, this guy is incompetent. If this was a business, these people, I would literally, if I could just fire him right there, I would have. But listen to what she has. Listen to what she has to say. Listen to what she has to say about Miranda.
For too long, Sheriff Miranda has operating his office like his own personal firm, even as far as traveling to work in his city vehicle with lights and sirens when there is no emergency. The real emergency is the way my members have been bullied, mistreated, all while trembling on their rights as labor union members. I thank this committee for your time. I'll take any questions if anybody have.
So she said that, apologies that it's low, but it just is. That's just how the video is. But she basically said that, she said he runs the sheriff's office like his own private fiefdom. A fiefdom is like a medieval, lordship, whatever, like medieval times. He runs it like his own kingdom, basically, his own fiefdom, like his little kingdom, And she said that he drives to work with lights and sirens on and abuses authority. And the real problem is that the way that he treats his members, the way that he tramples on their civil rights and their worker rights. But I definitely recommend listening to her entire speech. Really good speech. And it just shows you a little bit about who Anthony Miranda really is and how the people underneath him think about him. See, unlike Miranda in the New York City Police Department, the rank and file have much worse things to say about John Chell, Kaz Daughtry, the rest of these clowns. And people don't know that from the outside, but the rank and file absolutely despises these people. Other than a few young kids that, like I said, they surround themselves with young kids that they let them play Xbox and PlayStation for the first 3 hours of duty, and then they work out and they get unlimited overtime. So those people aren't going to tell you that. But the majority of the people that make the wheels turn in the New York City Police Department absolutely have much worse things to say about it. Unfortunately, they have no representation other than this podcast.
I listened to the speech of Ingrid Simonovic, and I thought that Ingrid's speech was on point. I thought that she was pretty expressive, and that she seemed to be genuine to me when it came to the accusations that she made about the hostile environment under Miranda. So what it said to me, I was like, this is so reflected of police department, just as you had said. I agree with you, John. It's so reflected of police department. Why? Because leadership is so important when it comes to an organization. And we see it now with the sheriffs. We see it with the police department. It's an abusive environment because they're under inadequate leadership, insecurities by men that are just weak cowards that should not be in these positions. And ultimately, John, let's be honest, who's responsible for this? Who's responsible for a hostile environment? Who's responsible for the New York Sheriff's Department going down the tubes because of Anthony Miranda? Who's responsible for the New York City Police Department being low morale and abusive environment? And exactly that. The overwhelming majority of the police department is not satisfied with John Chell and Kaz Daughtry. We speak to cops anonymously on a constant basis. Unless you're in khaki pants and you're part of general population, you're being treated like a dog. You're overworked, exhausted. They're not backing you up. They're not supporting you. They're not getting the amenities. And who's responsible? Mayor Eric Adams, the de facto leadership of this whole breakdown of this tyrannical environment, because he's tyrannical himself.
Nighthawk says, let's get rid of the competition in selling and weed selling and help my friends get their weed license so they can open up their own weed businesses. Yeah, we're going to get into that 100%. E-Man, Miranda was always shady, even when he was with the Hispanic Society. Yeah, absolutely. It's completely ridiculous. Completely NOLA, that's what it was. So this is him testifying. Here's Justin Brannon asking him, apologies that this is a little low. If you guys could just let us know if you can hear it, so I'll know if I should continue to play these or not. But they are a little low. So he's going to ask him about how much money. Justin Brannon's going to ask Miranda about how much money has been seized by the sheriff's office, and he has no idea. Nor does he know if there was ever any money seized from one of these raids. Apparently the New York City Police Department is responsible to do all the vouchering. Now, I don't necessarily believe that. If that is true and that is the case, it's still your office had conducted the raid. Your office is overseeing it. So you would still be responsible to work in conjunction because you have members of the New York City Police Department working with you. You should still know how many raids you've conducted, how much cash has been seized from businesses. The other thing I want you to take note of is Justin Brannon's asking him where his forfeiture money goes, right? What account is for his forfeiture money? And he doesn't know. He has no idea. And then Justin Brannon tells him how much money he has in his forfeiture account and how much money has been put in the forfeiture account from 2023 when he was the sheriff. And he doesn't know. So right there, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, wow, this guy has no idea how much money the sheriff's office has seized last year. And he doesn't even know where it goes. So can he be trusted? Can the integrity of this cash be trusted? I don't think so, because he doesn't even have any records of it. So here we go. You're going to listen to the illustrious sheriff in New York City right now.
Sheriff does not seize cash from any of the locations. NYPD seizes cash for safekeeping and investigative review when necessary. To the best of your knowledge, has any sheriff's office employee during any inspection of any of those shops ever seized any cash?
During padlock to protect operations?
Yeah.
I do not believe so.
Okay, which asset forfeiture account does seized cash get deposited into?
If we haven't seized the cash, I think I could probably get that for you. If there's any seized cash by the sheriff's office, what asset forfeiture accounts they utilize, I can probably come back and be able to give you that information. I don't have that available right now.
Okay, because NYPD, right, they have an asset forfeiture account, and the Office of the Sheriff asset forfeiture account, or is there another account? There was a controller's report for FY23. The ending balance for the Office of the Sheriff asset forfeiture account was about $867,000, with about $295,000 in revenue from that year. So do you have a projected revenue from the asset forfeiture for FY25?
I do not.
Does the seized cash fund any specific programs within DOF?
No, you form an asset forfeiture generally. I mean, there are rules and regulations about how you can utilize any money that's taken for asset forfeiture, and there are specific guidelines to that. So I don't have that information available, but I think one of the things you can do is for training and other things like that. But it's very specific about the use, and we have somebody else in the office that's assigned to taking care of that. So there would be the person that would speak to the particulars on that, or I can find out more for you at a later time.
But right here today, do you have a total amount for cash that's been seized at these inspections?
Okay, two different questions, right? Asset forfeiture and the general nature of where we get funding from, that may come from various resources not related to cannabis enforcement. We're talking about cannabis enforcement since Padlock to Protect. The vouchering process has been designated with New York City NYPD, New York City Police Department. So that currently, they are the ones who voucher the property depending on the circumstances of the location. They will either voucher it as safekeeping, or they will voucher it as investigatory evidence depending on the different circumstances. So it will depend on the circumstances of each in particular inspection and how we got there.
But you don't have a total number for how much?
I do not. I can definitely get the information afterwards by conferring with the New York City Police Department.
Okay. Thank you. We've also been joined by council members Stephen.
So the dude knows absolutely nothing, bro. If is this someone that should be running anything?
So first of all, this is news to me, John. Hold on, I got a train coming by. Give me a second here.
Yeah. Mute that.
About my RV.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, you heard him right there. He doesn't know how much cash has been seized. He has officers assigned to him. He doesn't know how many. He doesn't know anything about where the money goes. He has no projections based upon last year because he doesn't even know how much money he took in last year. I mean, this dude was a sergeant in the NYPD. That leads me to believe that he was probably one of the worst sergeants in the NYPD. He had no idea what was going on, what crimes his command was taking, who his officers were, what their activity was, what the community was complaining about. He had no idea. He just showed up at work. He put a uniform on. He drove around for a couple hours, probably flirted with some of the girls, and that's about all he did. It's like, yeah, I'm a sergeant, bro. I'm a sergeant. You know, this is the sheriff in New York City. Complete incompetence.
John Bones, sorry about that. I had a train coming by. I'm traveling my RV. If anybody has an opportunity to travel by RV, it's outstanding. You get to be close to nature. It's about the most free you could ever be. Bones 1999 says it's all about the power with these guys. It was never about the money since the day they raised their hands. They're all egomaniacs. You're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, he's in a position of leadership. He should understand, especially when it comes to money. Money is such an intricate thing, especially when you're working in a New York City agency, whether it's the police department, whether you work in the sheriff's office. When you're apprehending and you're seizing funds, that is something that you would think would be meticulous. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have the exact numbers on hand. You probably would have those reports, especially, I will give credit to that when it comes to the leadership of the NYPD. They would have those reports when it comes to money, I would assume. But at this point, what do we see? We see just an abusive office when it comes to sheriff's office, the police department, inadequate leadership. So it's one of two things. Either he's a complete moron or he's just being arrogant because there's things to hide behind the curtain when it comes to money. And that's why I said to you earlier, John, is this someone that you would put in your circle who's already been shrouded of suspicion when it comes to campaign funds? Is this someone we want to put in a position that has their hands and their fingers on money of seizure? It's quite interesting. To my knowledge, you know, I've done it all with the police department and I've done operations with the sheriff's office also. To my knowledge, I don't remember the police department having to voucher money on behalf of the sheriff's office. That's news to me. I don't want to say that is not the case because I don't remember, but I want to check on that because I don't remember that. Even if that's the case, what's so important when it comes to the seizure of money, if it's going to go to civil court or if it's something that's a criminal nature, and with the sheriff's office, most likely something civil, there would have to be a chain of custody, especially when it comes to the seizure of money. We have to document who touches that money and how that money makes it to the bank. That's so important. And he can't even articulate which asset forfeiture bank is holding that money. I think, on behalf of Justin Brannon, he's not a big friend of ours. John took a picture with him, but I think the question was very simple, and I think he was being shrewd about it, and rightfully so.
I see, again, I think Justin Brannon's incompetent as well, because this should have been a red flag right here. And this should have, honestly, at this point, sheriff should have been seized. City council's there to ensure that what the mayor put in place is actually working. They're there to provide the oversight. This is oversight for the finance chair. Someone keeps posting red flags in here, and 100% should be red flags. Corn Pop brings up exactly the point that needs to be had here. During COVID, the sheriff's office was raiding bars and confiscating alcohol, expensive alcohol. And what they were doing was, and this all came out in the paper, by the way, what they were doing was they were taking the alcohol and storing it in a private location and using it for their own personal stash. So God knows how many of those bottles also went home and went to friends' houses and went to all of these things, but they were keeping bottles of alcohol. And that came out and people were arrested, and I don't think anybody was ever convicted. And I think that kind of fell by the wayside. But there's been a problem in the chain of custody. When you listen to the union's testimony, she says there's big problems in the sheriff's office. She says the way that they keep evidence, they store it in unsafe locations, e-bikes, marijuana, exposing her officers to toxins. But I think she's also doesn't understand that her officers are being exposed to a lot of frivolous allegations that honestly, there's no way for it to be proven or disproven at this point because it's such a convoluted mess. When you have the sheriff who has NYPD police officers assigned to him. So whether the NYPD is responsible for vouchering that money or not, they're assigned to his office. They fall under his ranks, meaning that he is responsible to compile the data. He is responsible to ensure what has been taken from all of these seizures. He is the investigative arresting authority on that scene, although he has been assigned police officers to him. The fact that he doesn't know how much money has been confiscated, the fact that he doesn't know where confiscated money goes, he doesn't understand how much money he has in forfeiture, he has no projection for what they are going to do in the future, tells me that he has absolutely no idea what's going on. So I'm going to make the same statement again. Justin Brennan should have stopped the processes here, and there should have been numerous allegations made to the Department of Investigations immediately after this hearing. There should have been a Department of Investigation immediately sparked by the finance chair, Justin Brennan, by the Committee on Oversight chair. They should have immediately notified DOI and said, wait a minute, the sheriff has no idea what's going on, does not appear to be in control of what they're confiscating, and was not prepared to come here and speak today. And there are numerous red flags around this office, around his office prior. We've had allegations of stealing prior that have been proven, and he knows absolutely nothing. Yet he's here today to go over his budget that he knows nothing about.
Hey, good morning. Frankie197 says totally incompetent, big problem, and with a question mark, appointed position. You're right, brother. Another appointed position by Mayor Eric Adams. John and I have explored, we discussed this. We both agree that most of the positions in New York City when it comes to agencies should be elected positions. These positions should be elected by the people. Because, look, we see an environment with Eric Adams just completely shrouded with clouds of judgment, suspicions when it comes to corruption. And, I mean, I agree with you, John. I think you nailed it here. Absolutely. I think that there should be immediate notifications and immediate investigation done. Again, it's either two things. Either he's just a complete moron or he's just playing possum because they're hiding money. And what I can tell you this, anyone here that knows anyone that owns a restaurant, if you own the restaurant yourself or a bar, you know what they call alcohol when it's sitting on the shelf? Money on the shelf. That's exactly when they're moving bottles and they're leaving bottles and they're taking it for their own self-gratification. That's money. It's substantial. Alcohol is expensive. I mean, there's alcohol bottles. We know Johnny Walker Blue or high-end bottles that are $200 and $300 some odd dollars. These could be expensive bottles. Are there cheap bottles? Of course, but we're talking about a lot of money, and there's a lot of money that gets seized in the.
Speaking of seizing, Eric's internet just seized. So, but yeah, listen, I agree. I agree with all you guys. It's beyond incompetence. It's either he's too stupid to run the office, or there's some form of corruption going on. But it in itself, the incompetence is complete corruption, because if he doesn't know how much money, I mean, and me and Eric had showed it before when they did their raid with weed and with a marijuana raid. And we showed it before. We showed the mayor walking around sniffing weed packages. We showed you viral news who was arrested for selling illegal marijuana. I'm sorry, wasn't arrested. Had his shipment confiscated. He's tweeted about it numerous times. He's in there on an exclusive. Why any reporters are getting sole exclusives from the NYPD? I don't know. I didn't Freedom and Press. Loud Labs, have you gotten any exclusives? Has Fox, has New York Post, has any of them gotten any exclusives? I don't know. But I don't know why we're giving favoritism towards some reporters and others, especially reporters who have been arrested for the same thing, who could possibly taint a crime scene. So we seen the mayor walking around sniffing weed packages. And what did we say? We said this stuff is not being cataloged properly. There's no way they could catalog all of this product properly. Catalog it, voucher it, and it's actually breaking the chain of custody, which could ruin the work of these search warrants and all of these other things. So all that's being done. So if he doesn't know how much money was there, which is probably, I don't, would you agree is the biggest corruption prone thing there? I'm not going to say it's much bigger than the drugs, but it's definitely at least the top. It's if the drugs and the money should be similar, right at the top. Those are the highest forms of evidence and most corruption prone items that he's going to deal with, which is money and drugs, right? Or alcohol, money, drugs, and alcohol, right? We already know that there was a problem with the alcohol. Now he doesn't know how much money there is. Could anyone trust that he knows how much marijuana has been confiscated?
John, let's be honest, John. And we know he's a complete idiot. He's a moron. But make no mistake about it, the biggest morons know how much money they have. They know how much money's in their pocket. Even though he's a big moron, there's no way that he has no idea how they seize money, which bank it's going to, and where that money goes. Would you agree, John? I think it's hard to believe and hard-pressed that Anthony Miranda has no idea, especially when you're in the leadership position of the sheriff's office. Even though he's a complete moron, he's a dummy. He doesn't know where the money's going? Come on. I don't buy it. He knows.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not saying that he knows or he doesn't. He's saying he doesn't know here. So he's too incompetent to run the sheriff's office, is what I'm saying. So the calls for, he's saying here he doesn't know. So I have to have no, I can't say that I think he knows. I don't know that he knows. I only know that I know that he's incompetent, that he clearly isn't a leader, that he clearly, if there's any corruption, it's either happening because he's incompetent or because he's in on. So I don't know I don't know Anthony Miranda from a hole in the wall, but I could tell you right here, after watching this hearing, and I recommend anybody that's looking into any of this, watch that hearing, look at those answers that he gives. He does not know one thing. He doesn't know how much money's been taken. They don't ask about the marijuana seizures because, again, this isn't a hearing for that. This is a hearing for finances. But I guarantee he doesn't know. I guarantee he doesn't know because he doesn't know anything.
Hassan, you're right, brother. Good morning. Thank you very much. And I'm with you. We're going to be in lockstep when it comes to this. Bums. Hassan says bums at Eric's voice. You're right. They're bums. And you know what this shows, John? This shows that the political system of New York is broken, because what I've realized by this administration is that we're relying, leadership is so important on every level, but we're relying on one man to make all the proper adjustments, the proper appointments so that New York City is flourishing and flowing properly. And if not, it just could completely fall, because Mayor Eric Adams, he's pretty much a czar. He's a king. He has the ability to make all the appointments and put people in positions that are shrouded by judgment, that are just like him. And this is the byproduct. This is what we get. This is why we have to push. We need the system to change in New York. We need elected positions by the people, not by Eric Adams. Because look what we have. We have idiots in charge. I mean, I think honestly we could get someone from the 124 room to be in charge of the sheriff's office and do a better job. We got a hostile environment. We have complete shroud of judgment. We don't know where this money's going. And I can't believe that he actually, honestly, they're so arrogant. We see the arrogance of banks, Katie Honan. If anybody saw that, we'll put it up. But we see the arrogance of this entire administration. As far as I think Miranda's completely arrogant here. To actually not be embarrassed that you don't know where any of this money is going, this is insane.
It's disgusting. It's honestly disgusting. And again, I today, even this morning, I received text after text after text. It's going to be bad if Jumaane Williams takes over. I'm like, this dude, they're literally, I don't even want to say what I said, but I don't even want to say what I said because I can't even say what I said. But look at who's appointed around him. Look at all of the lack of integrity from everybody that this guy appoints. He's the worst manager ever, Eric Adams. Anthony Miranda could not run a patrol squad. Thank God for the test. Thank God for the testing in the NYPD. Thank God for it. Because people like that would never get ahead. Listen, right now we're talking about sheriff, the incompetent sheriff, New York City, Anthony Miranda. His sheriff's union is asking him to step down. We're also going to be talking about the COVID czar who worked on the Bill de Blasio. We got 962 people in here. If you guys could just do us a favor, like, subscribe, share out the space, repost it if you're on social media, wherever you're watching or listening. We appreciate everybody that's in here today, and give us your thoughts. We'll try to get to your questions and comments as best we can, but they're flying in. Former Sergeant Stephen Lee, the System Unfiltered, says Jumaane might do a better job than Adams. Listen, I'm saying right now, put Jumaane Williams in there. There is money that is completely unaccounted for in the millions of dollars from this administration. Every piece of New York City, every agency is ran by incompetent, low integrity individuals. We don't know what's going on. The wheels are beginning to stop to turn, not only in New York City Police Department, but in every city agency in New York City. This guy needs to go. Give Jumaane a few weeks. Let's see if he runs for mayor. I doubt he will even run for mayor, to be honest with you. I doubt he's even going to run. I personally think Cuomo is going to throw his name in the hat. Andrew Cuomo is going to be your next mayor. That's how I'm seeing it. That's how I'm looking at it. Everybody needs to go. Everybody's talking about freak out parties on here. And I'm going to say right now, it looks like they were all having freak out parties. It looks like they were all having freak out parties. Let me play this last video showing just one more step about how incompetent this guy is. So he doesn't know how many inspections they've conducted. He doesn't know how much money they've seized. He didn't know where his forfeiture money kept. He has no projections for the next year. He doesn't know anything. He just points fingers to the NYPD, who are assigned to him, by the way. So he's clearly not supervising them. And let's see, does the New York City Sheriff, Anthony Miranda, know how many arrests his team has made during business inspections? Let's see.
Around arrests and referrals, how many arrests have been made during inspections?
Okay, I don't have those numbers, and again, during the inspections, the people that are being arrested are not being arrested for cannabis-related violations. If they're being arrested because we found other illegal products that result in them being arrested.
Absolutely. And those arrests, I know a lot of times you do.
That's it. He doesn't even know. He doesn't know.
Yeah, listen, I find it hard to believe that he doesn't know. I think that he's a complete moron, but I think that he's totally evading the questions. I think that he's purposely being evasive. I think that he knows. I think that he knows where this money's going. I think it's a complete lie. More gaslighting, more lies. This entire administration is it cannot be trusted. I just think it's all out lie. I find it hard to believe. He knows where this money's going. I'm telling you right now, if he was missing $50 from his bank account, I'm sure he would know where that money went, or he would start making phone calls. He knows.
It's well, he doesn't know how many. He doesn't even know how many arrests. He don't even know how many arrests his team has made. And he says, "Oh well, they're not for marijuana. Who cares? We've conducted this many inspections. This is how many arrests we have. This many is related to marijuana offenses. How is this hard? This is policing 101. This is police supervision 101. If this dude was a sergeant, he would get chewed out. Chewed out. No one's saying anything. City council sitting there like this. Yeah, I guess he doesn't know the answers. And her line of questioning just kept continuing around the rest, and he knew nothing. It was honestly, I'm telling you guys, go back 9/17, go to city council, go to the videos, watch this. I can't play the whole thing because we'd be here for 4 hours just listening to this moron tell you he knows nothing. Again, shit does not look right, and he is incompetent. So he's obviously incompetent. So again, when a corruption scandal breaks out, is anybody going to be shocked? Is anybody going to be shocked when if Anthony Miranda gets his house raided and he's a subject of a federal investigation? I'm not. I'm saying right now he should be.
Wait a minute, John. Are you telling me that you would think that there would be a corruption probe in an administration of the Mayor Eric Adams? I find that hard to believe. A corruption probe of the Mayor Eric Adams to the sheriff's office? Why would we think that would happen? Is there anything else going on that we would think that? You know, again, what does this show also, John? You know who else are idiots? New York City Council. They're stupid too. They don't know. Maybe they don't know the questions to ask because they just don't know themselves. I mean, clearly they don't understand what's going on with the sheriff's office. They don't realize how much money these guys take in, how much property they recover. And I agree with you. Does it matter? She didn't ask what type of arrest. She just said how many arrests. And yet you can't give that number. But I have to give these guys credit. That's why I don't think they're as dumb as we think they are. They're great at deflecting questions. Miranda deflects questions. Banks deflects questions. We'll show you in a minute. You'll see that. Everyone in this administration, they do a great job at deflecting questions. So they're not as dumb as we think they are. They're a little smarter. They know how to move when it comes to money.
Yeah, so Tom says the first day of BMOC, prisoners and property will jam you up. And the system Unfiltered says, Tom, it's actually the 3 Ps. And you guys could guess what that other P is, you know? So here is the Sheriff Anthony Miranda at a Latino organization that represents cannabis business owners. Right? Do you think that there is arbitrary enforcement possibly not being done against Latino-owned cannabis owners? I don't know. Here he is at the event. Possibly, maybe not. We don't know. I mean, it's probably being alleged if you speak to the Yemeni business owners. They're alleging that. The ones whose businesses have been raided, they're alleging that. And they're also alleging that there is a hands-off style of policing for when it goes into the Asian community as well. So I don't know. That's just what I'm hearing. And then so I had to take a look. Someone sent me this. So then we looked into who else is what is this Latino organization like that's been around. And look who it is, the co-founder, Latino Cannabis. Look who the co-founder of this is. LCA co-founder Jeffrey Garcia, appointed to New York City Mayor's Small Business Advisory Commission. So for those of you that don't know who Jeffrey Garcia is now, I don't know that he's still he was the one-time president of this. I don't know if he still is. I haven't really looked in that deep, but he was the president of this, and obviously they're touting him as the co-founder. So now he is actually the executive director of the Office of the Nightlife of Mayor. Who is the Office of Nightlife of Mayor? Let's go back to that video where the business owner said he reached out to the Office of the Nightlife Mayor, to a man named Ray Martin, and told him he was having problems with the NYPD and he was trying to keep his business open. And when he reached out to him, a man named Ray Martin had told him to call a private firm by a man, by former police commissioner Ed Caban's twin brother, James Caban. And that man alleges that he was being shaken down. He was asked to give him $2,500 and the New York City Police Department would lay off of him. And when he didn't, his business was closed. So That's who Jeffrey Garcia is. He runs that office where Ray Martin received that phone call. What a tangle web we weave, Eric.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I always put that sometimes in my tweets when it comes to Eric Adams. What a tangle web we weave. We like to deceive, and that's the deception of this administration. So we also have to ask. I mean, because they're all friends, they're all Eric Adams cronies. They all have their hands on money. They're all part of this cookie jar. Does Anthony Miranda and the retrieval of property in these weed business, does somehow his organization as the sheriff, does he tie into these bars also? There could be something there. We know that he's addressing these pot locations. Is he involved in this potential racketeering scheme with these bars? Could be. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, someone put here that I think it was Nighthawk. Who was it here? Let me see. So many comments flying in, but somebody put that Miranda's a hired gun. Could be. It could be in this when it comes to, I don't know, as far as an assassin in the sense that he's actually killing people, but maybe he's killing businesses. I agree in that. If that's what you mean by that, I'm curious. Someone put in a comment that Miranda's a hired gun, and I believe that could be when it comes to killing businesses for their own profit. So, and that's the way that I see it potentially. So let's switch gears. I think this is a great video. And here, of course, is Philip Banks at the center of this entire corruption scandal, along with Eric Adams. Again, I always say that nepotism is equivalent and equates to corruption, especially as egregious it is with the NYPD. But really what we see the nepotism is on the level of all agencies right now in New York City because of Eric Adams, because he is the worst manager, the worst leader. He's by far the worst man we've ever had. And he appoints everyone of low morale and low integrity. And here's your number one person of low integrity, your unindicted co-conspirator, Philip Banks. And watch how he treats a journalist. Watch how he deflects a question. Watch how arrogant he is. Well, you make your assumption. John and I both believe that he's just so arrogant at this point, even in this investigation. Let's turn right to it. Let's get into it.
Yeah, so this comes out. So let's just say right now, this man had his home raided and his phone's taken a while back. So did his brothers. He's largely avoided the press, so nobody knows how he feels about it, what his thoughts are about it. I guess it's his right not to say anything to the press. Katie Honan works for the city. She's obviously a pit bull. She's obviously unafraid to approach people and ask questions. If you guys watch Off Topic Tuesday, she's my favorite part of Off Topic Tuesday. She will ask the questions that I want to know the answers to, that you want to know the answers to. She's unafraid to ask it. You could tell this administration cannot stand her because she asks the questions that people want to know, that the public wants to know. And this is freedom of speech. This is freedom of the press. This is freedom of journalism. And I think she honestly does a great job. And I think she's a pit bull. I think she's unafraid. And I give her a lot of credit. I give her a ton of credit for the work that she does. I think that she does great work, exposing exactly who these people are and what they've been doing. It's also should be noted that there was a ton of press waiting for Timothy Pearson. And he turned his car around and left. So he never actually went to the meeting, or he snuck in the back door somewhere. One or the other. So this is Katie Honan asking the unindicted co-conspirator, former first deputy commissioner of the NYPD, turned unindicted co-conspirator under the Eric Adams administration. He was reborn as the deputy mayor for public safety. This is Phil Banks, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last person that should be hired for anything around public safety. And here's Katie Honan.
Hey, Deputy Mayor. Hey, do you want to talk about, I'm not a Knicks fan. I just follow St. John's basketball. But what did it feel like when the FBI showed up? I don't know. And they seized your phone. I know you have a lot of phones. How many phones did they seize?
You want a mint?
What?
You want a mint?
No, I'm okay.
You need one.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much. But do you want to talk about when the FBI showed up? Your breath probably didn't smell good when they showed up that morning. Do you want to talk about it?
There you go.
No, I'm okay.
You need one.
No, I actually just had gum. Thank you.
But you need a mint.
Thank you so much.
good.
You want to
Thanks,
comment on the
Katie.
fact
We're
that
good.
you
Thanks,
I know
thanks,
you have
everybody. We're
experience as an
fine. We're
unindicted
fine. We're good now.
co-conspirator.
We're
Do you
good
wanna-
now.
You want a man?
No, I'm okay.
You need one.
You need. Could you have a lawyer that's working for you?
You need a man.
Do you want to discuss the Fed showing up at your house?
Katie, you need a man. I'm being friendly.
Did you get new
You
phones?
need a man.
Did you get new phones?
It's your breath, Katie.
Hey, Deputy Mayor.
So,
Hey.
hold on. Sorry about that.
You can play it again. It's okay.
No,
Play it again.
no.
It's hilarious.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. What would happen to a New York City cop if they talked to somebody like that?
Well, that was my point. That's why you could play it again, because it just solidifies if you're a New York City cop and you acted in that manner, there would be hell to pay. Again, you're a representative, right? You're supposed to lead by example. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not saying you have to go deep into these questions, but have a little courtesy and a little respect for the public, even if you don't like Katie Honan. But the way that he answered, the arrogance, can you imagine this is how our New York City police officers walked around when people asked them questions and you were like, hey, go get a mint? I mean, it's so arrogant at this point. There's no shame on this administration at all. And that's why I say, look, you learn by your leadership. You act on your leadership. Your leadership sets the tone. Deputy Mayor Philip Banks, Eric Adams, they set the tone for these agencies. We see John Chell and Kaz Daughtry act like complete idiots. But who's in charge? Look where they're learning from. They're bullying the public, and so is he. So again, leadership is reflective of the entire administration of the organizations, and we see it right here. We see in this arrogance. He could have said, listen, there's an investigation going right now. I'm going to comply. You'll get more information. I have another appointment to attend to. But no, just complete arrogance.
Yeah, Nighthawk says she's a gangster. Absolutely. Katie Honan is a gangster. I'll definitely certify that fact. Eddie Nunez says he's wearing the Ray-Ban Meta glasses that have the camera on his glasses. Yeah, I noticed that. Is it? Yeah, no, it definitely is. He's got the two circles. You're 100%
definitely
on
is.
point. Yeah, he's wearing those. Hey, he was an unindicted co-conspirator. I don't think for a second that he wasn't talking. And he ain't gonna sing like a canary again to sell his soul. I mean, look, he's still in power. And listen, I'm not a fan of Ed Caban. I said he was a low integrity individual, but like, why did he just step down? Why didn't this dude step down? Why didn't his brother step down?
I tell you what, what's funny? I was looking at those recently. I was like, when we go to New York, John, because we're gonna have to go to New York together at some point, especially if they do a perp walk, we need those glasses. We're gonna need those glasses for sure. But yeah.
I already have them actually.
Oh, you do?
And I'll be in New York shortly. So
same color as Philip Banks. You got the brown ones?
No, I got a man color. I'm surprised he didn't get a blue.
I guarantee. Listen, these guys got so much money. He probably has one that matches every suit because I know that you would buy the black one, right? That's always my favorite. So you got a brown one to match his brown suit. Who knows what he's got? These guys got plenty of money. But yeah, listen, I said the same thing. I said it since the beginning, right? I always titled Ed Caban as the most insignificant police commissioner. And this entire time, we thought John Chell would be the fall guy. But sure enough, he was the fall guy. He took everything. Unless right now he's singing with the feds, which I hope he is, because they put the dirt on him. I'm Jewish, right? When you have a funeral, John, you work the 6-6 precinct. Jewish people get buried right away. Right away. The next day, next morning, right away. And when you're Jewish, you throw dirt. I don't know why. That's the tradition. I never really understood it. But you throw dirt on someone. Ed Caban, man, the second he was gone, these guys buried him already, and they threw dirt on him. This is these guys, I tell you, they're smooth. They're arrogant. It's unbelievable. Could you imagine your phone was taken, you're being probed by the feds? Wouldn't you be embarrassed? These guys don't have any shame. None.
No, why should they? I mean, listen, he's already, people are like, oh, he's making $260,000 a year. He's making a lot more than that, people. He's collecting his pension too. He's probably getting like $20,000, $30,000 a month on top of the $260,000 a year. Plus, if they're doing what they're alleged to be doing, that's chunk change. That's play money right there. That's not even nothing. So yeah, your tax dollars, public safety has become the ultimate grift. Working for the New York City Police Department under Eric Adams has become the ultimate grift. This has become a lucrative career. I mean, of course, they tarnished the entire department and they tarnished all of the hard work over the last 30 years to make this police department look something that represents the public. But they've worked. I mean, Eric Adams has done the best job of defunding the police that anybody's done at everybody ever. Because not only does he give the appearance of impropriety around every rank and file member of the New York City Police Department, around his whole entire appointed staff, but he actually chased out the most amount of cops out of everybody in the country. So he's the ultimate. He wins the title. He's the king of defunding the police. And it should be called defund, defame, because right now, again, I've said it. I read constantly about corruption, constantly about mob history, very tied in with the New York City Police Department. The entirety of the New York City Police Department, has been a systemically corrupt organization. The last 30 years, that was not the case. There was bouts of corruption. There was corruption about every 10 years. You'd run into a corruption scandal, but it was isolated. It was isolated and contained. It wasn't systemic. Under Eric Adams, the New York City Police Department from the top appears to be systemically corrupt. And now we're just seeing people take hits for it and fall. And who comes back? So I got only one message to Eddie Caban. Sing, Eddie, sing. Let everybody know what's going on, because they threw you and your brother under the bus when they were all in on it and probably doing much worse. Sing, Eddie, sing.
Yeah, like I said, they're throwing the dirt on you right now. They already drove over your grave. They're already kissing the ass of the new interim PC. They forgot about Eddie already. They don't even mention him at all. They don't even say, hey, Eddie's missed, what he's done. No, he's the man of the year. And I tell you, it's funny. The second he's gone, that goes away real quick. Everyone in this administration, if they can financially benefit you, you're the man of the year. I'm trying, I saw from Latina Brown. Let me get up in the chat if I can. Hispanic Heritage Month. Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez is inviting people. He's going to have an event for Hispanic Heritage Month. And you know who's one of the honorees at the Heritage Month for Hispanics? Who do you think's an honoree there? Anthony Miranda. Miranda, of course, he's an
not
honoree.
man of the year. He's a good friend of Sid Rosenberg. I think Sergeant Blue said it. Good friend.
Sid Rosenberg's got some group of friends. He's got the same friends as Eric Adams. I wonder if Sid Rosenberg is
Blue. Is he a good friend? Did you say that? Oh.
It's unbelievable, man. I tell you. But look at that suit, man. That's a sassy suit. He's got Ray-Bans on. He's making a lot more money than people. $260,000 with taxes is not a lot of money. Let's be honest, especially in New York City right now. He's making a lot more than that. I mean, I was making close to $260 with overtime. Amount of taxes I was paying. I would look at my check sometimes like, oh my God, after deductions and for your pension and your contributions and your taxes, and like, I got nothing left. So these guys are making a lot more for. I can tell you back then I wasn't affording Ray-Ban glasses. I wasn't affording a sassy suit like that.
Yeah, so let's get into Dr. J. Varma. So listen, all of Eric Adams' appointments are absolutely disgusting. I personally think Eric Adams has attended many freakouts. Not only with Puff Daddy, I think he was at Zero Bond. I think he was doing freakouts. And I think New York City has a lot of freakouts. I always pictured Bill de Blasio, though, when he would come to the press conference with his eyes all red. I always pictured him, and I'm sorry for being so descriptive, but I always pictured him ball gagged, like in the room with a bunch of dudes right before he showed up late to the press conference. And then he would show up late at the press conference with his eyes all red. And I was like, and I used to tell my wife, well, I'm like, look at this guy. He's a deviant. This person's running New York City. He's a deviant. Look at him. Look at him. So Jay Varma, he was the COVID czar. He was the architect of the lockdowns. He was the architect of the mandates. I mean, he comes out. But before we even get into, let's go a little history on Dr. J. Varma and Mayor Bill de Blasio. This is a great video. Again, this is coming out from Dave Savella. He just, little historical. Who's Dr. J. Varma? Who's Mayor Bill de Blasio? Who are these people? Let's get into this. We got about 1,800 people in the chat right now. Guys, do us a favor, like and subscribe. Share this space out, post and retweet it. Let's get a few more people in here. We're trying to get to all your thoughts and questions. But I think this is the most disturbing and vindicating thing that I've seen in the last 3 years. So let's get into this because this is enraging. This enraged me yesterday. It came out yesterday. I didn't want to talk about it yesterday. I was a little under the weather, and I knew this was going to go for a while. We're about an hour and 15 minutes in. This is who Dr. J. Varma claimed to be. And then we're going to see who Dr. J. Varma actually is.
A virus that is not spread by sex. A lot of people are getting it because they're having sex, but it just spread by skin to skin contacts, just the same way, chicken pox is spread or a lot of other skin infections. Good news also for this is that we have, unlike COVID at the beginning, we actually have a test, we have vaccines, and we even have drugs we can use to treat this. And so we just need a more focused effort from government.
Everyone, we're going to keep rolling out incentives. We're going to keep making it easy. We're going to keep making it fun. We really, really need to get everyone vaccinated. So keep watching, keep joining in. Choose the thing you love. Choose the incentive that moves you and come on out and get vaccinated.
This is.
So, Eric, what'd you think about the incentives when they started?
I mean, right away, that should have perked everybody up. When they started out with these incentives, you're like, wait a minute. If this shot is so good, if this is what's so important. Now, by this time, I had already taken the shot. I told you I'd taken the shot right away because it was offered to me. I lost my father to COVID. I never put any thought to it. I was a Marine, had so many shots. I said, what was one more? But this had come out after it. And when I started to see it, I was like, oh, wow, you need incentives to give a shot out there? We need to offer people French fries and stuff like that. This is another indication that this was politically driven. And that was the other thing. Where is this coming from? This is coming from your mayor that's pushing this. This is coming from politicians. It was totally politically driven. And that's where I started to see. And we started to see where our police officers were mandated to follow certain rules. And even myself, I got to be honest, I wasn't out there wearing the mask. And constantly Cop Watch would film me. I'm not wearing the mask, saying that we're out there killing people. And it was all a lie. It's just complete theater. Someone put on here, not to just get totally off, but I think it's kind of funny. Maybe someone that worked at Mayor Eric Adams, Tom Anthony, says Eric was freaking out in the Grand Central bathrooms. Transit cops know. Hey, listen, maybe you could weigh in on some more information like that. I'm not surprised, but this is this former administration right here pushing this mandate, complete lies, politically driven, and then they were at the 1 yard line, and here comes Mayor Eric Adams in office, and boom, he takes this whole thing down to the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, once I seen the mandates, and once I seen the incentives, I was like, are people not seeing what's going on here? Like, this is absolutely doesn't make any sense. None of them are following the rules. Absolutely none of them are following the rules. And everyone's like, yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, no. I just want to go eat in a restaurant. I just want to go travel. I just want to go do these things. And I'm like, wow. I was like, you people are all weak. Like, this is the weakest shit I've ever seen in my life. Now, I get the people that were like, my kid's in the hospital. I got to go. That's the line I'm not willing to cross. My parents are in the hospital. I want to go see my dying mother. I get that. I honestly do. Because this is life and death. You're going to lose the last moments of possibly a loved one. I mean, but you're the people that should be enraged right now. Enraged. Everybody, anybody, all of us, every single person, wherever we stood in 2020, whether we agreed, whether we were in direct opposition to each other, at this point, after watching this, after watching what we're about to show you, after watching what this man said, this is the architect. He didn't believe in any of it. He actually, at one point, even goes in on the video, and I put out a separate video, and I'll play that as well, because Crowder puts everything out in pieces. I thought he did it really well to get more attention to it. We'll show you that video. But at one point, he even says there's zero difference between somebody that took it and somebody that didn't, and someone that had previously been sick. So why did we do this then? And my wife's asking me, well, then why'd they do it? I'm like, I don't know why. Doesn't matter. I don't know if there were kickbacks. I don't know if there weren't kickbacks. I don't care. All I know is that they lied, and they knew they were lying, and they forced people to put something in their body that they didn't want, and by what he just said, they didn't need. And that's the only thing that matters here. And now he's trying to paint Steven Crowder as a right-wing extremist when he's a deviant liar. So, but yeah, Corn Pop saying major kickbacks. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. We don't even need to prove the kickbacks. We have the crime already here. We can get to the kickbacks later. The crime's already here. Every single person, whether you took it, whether you didn't, whether you thought it was a good thing in the beginning, whether you thought it was a terrible thing in the beginning, whether you were coerced into it or you lost your career because you wouldn't let yourself be coerced into it. It doesn't matter. We should all be cheering today. We should all be cheering today and say, we're never going to let this happen again. The government is never going to lie to us like this again. We're never going to listen to these people again. This is the cover of the New York Post today. Undercover lover, while you suffered in quarantine, the city COVID czar went to sex clubs. Oh, and by the way, was taking Molly. He says rolling. So he was using drugs on top of that. A licensed doctor who teaches, I believe, I forget where he teaches, but he's a professor too.
John, I never told this story publicly, but I just want to tell this story real quick. And this is what led to me also taking the shot and why I was so perturbed when I was so pissed off, and which is another reason why I just can't support Cuomo. So my father was in a nursing home. Unfortunately, he was living out in Florida. He'd gotten really sick. His health was deteriorating, mostly because of diabetes and other issues. And my sister and my brother and myself, we actually paid for a private helicopter. We had my father flown into a hospital in Long Island. And then we had him eventually transported to a nursing home. And it's short April 2020. Somehow you just know. I just had this bad feeling. I just had this bad feeling. My father's health was really deteriorating, and he had contracted COVID. And I just had this horrible feeling. I said, I don't know if my father's going to keep going, if he's going to make it. So I'll never forget, I was at the precinct, and I said, I gotta go to the nursing home. And at the time, they wouldn't let anybody in. So I said, I don't care what it takes. If I gotta break that fucking door down, I'm getting in there. So I grabbed the Tyvek suit from the desk at PSA 7. And I said, listen, I got to take lost time. I got to go. So I drove out. I was working in the Bronx. I drove out to Long Island where my father was. And I'll never forget, they wouldn't let me in. And now they had this big, giant, it was a beautiful nursing home. My sister, my brother, myself, and my father, we were all paying for it. And I was banging on the glass so hard. I'll never forget that for like 20 minutes, they were ignoring me and they wouldn't let me in. Banging to the point where I thought it was going to shatter, but I didn't care. I just knew. I was like, this is my last chance of seeing my father. So I was banging. And I put on that whole Tyvek suit. I looked like a maniac. And I was like, let me in. And finally, they let me in. So I went in. I didn't care if I contracted COVID. I put on this suit just to play this whole game. I got in. I saw my father. I put everybody in my family on FaceTime. And 2 days later, I lost my father. And look what I had to go through. I was wearing a Tyvek suit. I almost broke down this glass. I looked like a maniac. I was driving from the Bronx to Long Island, crying the entire time. I was so close to my father. And I just knew. I don't know how, but you just know. I knew this was the last chance. And then you have an animal like this who's out here having sex parties, taking drugs, who's telling you that you can't touch anybody, that you need a mask. And this is crazy. And then my father, when we buried my father, I had to watch with binoculars. And yet there's people like this who are out there promoting it. And there's people like you who had to leave your career. There's people like Marlon who are on this chat who were terminated. And then you have sick people like this. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I never told that story publicly. But yeah, I didn't care. I had to get there. And I didn't care if I got caught COVID. But again, you know what? You know what's crazy is I look back, it was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. They could have let me in. I didn't need that Tyvek suit. It was all nonsense. It was a complete lie.
The entire thing was bullshit. And like, you know, and that's the whole thing that bothered me from the get-go. Because I'll tell you, like at first, you know, my wife's freaking out. Everybody's freaking out. My mother-in-law's freaking out. My sisters are freaking out. My friends are freaking out. And I'm sitting there going, well, you know, I always lean on my faith and everything, you know. And I'm like sitting there, and I swear, like I'm literally getting up to go to work in the morning, and I'm thanking God. I'm like, thank God I'm a cop and I get to go to work. I'm like, thank God I'm here. My friend's businesses are shut down. I'm like, I don't know what I would do right now. I'm like, I don't know what I would do right now. So I'm literally thanking God that I'm a cop. I'm thanking God that I get to go to work. And then, so I listen to all the crap. My wife's driving me nuts. I'm sure like most people's wives were driving them nuts, right? Like, oh, you're going to get the kids sick. We can't quarantine. And I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? So I remember I go to Costco. I put the mask on. I'm like wiping down all the boxes. And like, you know me, I'm analytical. Like I analyze everything, right? Like, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, coming out of Costco, I have this dirty shopping cart that I wiped the whole thing, but I'm like, I could have missed the spot, right? Then I'm wiping the boxes, and then I'm like, you know what? I was wearing gloves and a mask, but more than likely, like I touched the car prior, I touched the dirty shopping cart, I touched the gloves were touching the thing, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I come home, I have no gloves on, no mask. My wife's like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, listen, if this thing's real, I we just got to have faith in God because, I'm like, there's no way that we could stop it. There's no way that we could stop it. Letting packages sit outside isn't going to help, like what they were telling you on the news. I'm like, if this shit is real, there's nothing we're going to be able to do. We have to have faith in God, and we just got to be strong, and we got to move through the whole thing. You know what I mean? And then, it just, the craziness just went on from there. That was in the beginning of it, right? And then for about a year, and maybe a year and a half, everything was all right until the shot comes out, right? And then all of a sudden, it's like the worst thing ever, right? Then all of a sudden, it's like the worst thing ever. What's Eric sending me? Oh, sure, Ingrid, are you on the live? If you're on the live, do me a favor. If you want to jump on, let us know. Sorry.
Yeah, I see Ingrid Simonovic is on the live. If she wants to come on and be great at this time, especially.
Yeah, Ingrid. Ingrid, if you want to come on and talk about Miranda, we could go back to that. Thank you for the condolences for Eric. Yeah, it was terrible what they did, and they did it. And again, it's not just Eric, right? It's thousands. It's all of us. Yeah. They did it to all of us. But Ingrid, we're on YouTube. If you want to come over onto Twitter, you could DM me, or you could go through the email. We could have you on, or you're always welcome to come on another day too if you're not able to do that. But just let us know in the chat so we could see it. Yeah, but we appreciate your hard work, and we support the hard work of what's going on, and we're sorry to see what's happening with this low integrity, clearly incompetent, potentially corrupt Sheriff Anthony Miranda and the rest of this administration.
Yeah, and I just want to say before you play the video, thank you so much for all the people sending condolences, and I really appreciate it. It's a crazy story, and but like you said, John said, you know what? I'm just one of many. I'm sure there's a lot of crazy stories out there. I'm sure a lot of people have any. If you have any similar stories, please share them. It's interesting just to see what some of us had went through back then, how we didn't even get a proper burial. But like I said, I'm one of many. So many. We lost our fathers, mothers, sons, daughters. We lost grandparents. We lost a lot of people, and the way we were treated is insane. And then you have people like this, being a doctor at least. Just these people are animals. Ingrid's on the live. Thank you so much, Ingrid. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, so, all right, let's play Dr. J. Varma. I hope he's stripped of that title shortly. Let's play that. I have a few videos, a few other things to go on, but absolutely disgusting. This man not only Does he show zero remorse here for anything he did to forget about the thousands, the millions of us, all of us? I don't care. Like I said, it doesn't matter where you stood in 2020. You were for it. You were against it. This man lied to us. He harmed us. We all suffer some version of PTSD from this. We were all harmed in one way or another. We couldn't see loved ones. We lost loved ones. We couldn't see. We couldn't bury loved ones. And it was because of people like this animal. And you're going to hear about his freakouts now. I'm going to play the video now.
I actually was the one who convinced the mayor to make it a mandate.
Like, New York City found out that you're having sex parties during COVID?
Yeah, it would have been real bad. We went to some like underground like dance party like underneath a bank in Wall Street. And we were all rolling, we were all taking Molly, and everyone was high. And I was so happy because I hadn't done that in like a year and a half, like a year or whatever. And but I was looking around being like, I wonder if he sees it because this was not COVID friendly. The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every night. You guys thinking about because hotels didn't want people gathering there. Because I was like running the entire program of the city. My wife and I like had one with our friends, like in August of like that first summer. So we rented a hotel. It was fun. We all like took like Molly and just like it was like 8 or 9 of us, and 10 or 8 to 10 of us in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was like so pent up because it had been like everybody was just like stuck together and stuff like that. Yeah, and sometimes it isn't so much about like some it's just something about like bodies being close to each other, like just being like naked with friends. Was that like when everyone was like walking out? It was like the summer of 2020. So like walk around the streets and you could eat outdoors. Did you have like any restrictions? There wasn't any restrictions on gathering. Like you could actually gather people. The hotels didn't want to start parties, but they weren't gonna like. Yeah. It's so funny. It's like this because I did all this like deviant like sexual stuff while I was like, you know, like on TV and all this stuff. Yeah. And people are like, aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, actually, I'm like really like I love being my authentic self. So the way we do it in public health is we make it very uncomfortable to be unvaccinated. I don't expect your education to change your behavior. I'm just to make it really hard for you to do your job. You can't get a job. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to school. It's like, at least you get vaccinated.
So was it technically like kind of forcing you?
Yeah, that's what you force people by making it really uncomfortable.
That is honestly, every time I watch, I get more mad.
That guy should be in jail, honestly. Like, I had to show my wife that. I'm like, because the first time I saw that, I was like, this has got to be AI. This isn't real. I had to watch it again. I'm like, this had to be AI. This is doctored up. Like, no way people are that selfish. And then I watch this. I'm like, what an animal. This guy should be in jail. All he cares about is him going out and having a good time and feeding his own needs, right? I'm going to go out and take Molly. Meanwhile, people out there dying of COVID, can't see their families, watching their families from a mile away get buried, have to wear a mask, it's almost laughable, right? He's like, talk about the extortion of making people take these vaccinations. This is sick. Honestly, this is sick, dude.
It's beyond sick. It's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. So we have a licensed doctor sitting here telling you that while he was forcing you to do something. Now, by the way, he says, he goes on, and I'll show you that clip in a minute, where he says there's no difference whether you take it or not. He's forcing you to do it. He's forcing you to abide by all these rules. Remember the little feet on the floor when you would go shopping? Like, you have to stand here, and everybody was freaking out. I remember grown men, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and they were afraid of me walking past me in the hallway. Grown men. I'm like, is this a joke? This is a year and a half later. We were all lined up last year in the height of this thing without wearing masks, thousands of us in an auditorium, and then going out on the streets every day. And now all of a sudden you're scared? Because Bill de Blasio told you to be scared? You're scared? And they're like, oh. Like, because they didn't want to get the air that I was breathing. Grown men. So we all listen to this, whether you bought into it hook, line, or sinker, or you didn't. It doesn't matter. We all listen to this, and this guy's telling you that they rented hotel rooms had deviant sex with other people, didn't matter what their status was, right? While they were forcing people out of their homes, their careers, they were bullying people, they were treating you and hurting you like cattle. And he was popping Molly. So he was tripping on ecstasy and they were having deviant sex. Deviant. I mean, listen, I don't judge anybody. You want to have an open relationship with your wife, you want to sleep with dudes too, that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. It's not what I do in my home. I'm not judging you. We all have our own crosses to bear and we all like our own different things. I personally am not into any of that, especially not doing drugs. But if I'm a licensed doctor and I'm sitting there and I'm telling you that you need to be 6 feet apart and these people are dirty and these other people aren't dirty and these are the good people and these are the moral people, but I am a deviant, a drug-induced deviant who has sex while I'm tripping on ecstasy with random people, and I'm sharing my wife and I'm sharing all of my orifices as well, I don't believe that I'm in the position, I should be placed in the position to tell anybody anything. But this person still in his head believes that he should be telling you what to do. He treated every single person on here, every single person you know, like your cattle, and he is the person that needs some boundaries, obviously.
We got $4.99 to the podcast from Patrick Donahue. I guess I got to read this comment here. Donation for remote show from the vault. I didn't even know if that place is still open. That's a crazy place. That would definitely not be a place we went during COVID. But I'm sure there were freak out parties there. I mean, this guy's an animal. I agree. 100%. This is criminal. He should be charged. Complete deviant. Again, and just doesn't even feel bad about it. He's almost like gloating about it. He's laughing about it. Like, yeah, listen, this is how you extort people, you know? You're telling people, people's lives are turned upside down. They can't even touch their loved ones. I mean, people had relationships. I know plenty of people that their relationships didn't work out because of COVID. You know, I know plenty of guys, they just met girls and they would just like in the dating phase, and then COVID hit, and then that relationship was completely gone because the women were scared to even have, to meet up. This is insane. Meanwhile, these people having these deviant sex parties, he's taking drugs, bragging about how it's pretty much extortion when it comes to these vaccinations. Put this bum in jail. He's a bum. Listen, from now on this podcast, when we see a loser, I just want you to know they're a bum and call them what they are.
Oh, Anthony Miranda. Bum. Bum.
He's a bum too.
Yeah. And Ingrid, I don't know if you heard me. Email us. We'll get you up on the live, or email us. Go to the financeunfiltered.com. Email us. If we don't get it today, we'll bring you on another day. You could tell us about Anthony Miranda. We could go through that testimony further too, because honestly, that was embarrassing. He's a bum. But yeah, dude, like, we were talking to my sisters. I was talking to my sisters like throughout this whole thing. And my father had just passed right before COVID. And, he was a crazy guy. He's a Vietnam vet. He was a street guy. He's like, but he was in, he was in hospice like right before this whole thing broke out, and he died. And I was like, my sister was like, she looked at me and she goes, I was thanking God the day that he passed away before this happened. She goes, I don't know what would happen. And I was like, and I still think about that. And hearing your story, Eric, it really, I'm like, to me, I mean, it's, I miss my father, but it was 100% a blessing that he wasn't around, because I don't know how I would react it either. I mean, people are talking about it here. This dude's talking about physically touching people that, I just craved it. Not even his wife, just random people who he's having all types of deviant sex with while he's tripping out on ecstasy. And I watched video after video of people being bucket lifted up to see their elderly mother who's dying in the hospital. And they're like touching them through glass or putting partitions over them. I'm like, this guy, we should bring back public hangings. We should bring them back. I'm not even kidding. Like, this guy, I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding. This is absolutely disgusting. And the sad part is, it's not like, he's getting all the flack. You don't think Bill de Blasio was doing the same thing? You don't think Eric Adams was doing the same thing? I know for a fact Justin Brennan, while you aren't allowed to eat in restaurants, he's in Bay Ridge and they're throwing parties with hundreds of people in there and no masks when they're telling me I'm a dirty animal. I'm a dirty conspiracy theorist. I'm an extremist. They're having hundreds of people at parties. Oh, that's okay, though, because it's them. Because it's them. You people are all cattle.
Listen, I'm not one. Listen, I'm not an advocate for drugs. I don't do drugs. Didn't do drugs my whole life. I really don't care what this guy does in his own time. If he wants to do drugs, I really don't give a shit. But if you're going to tell people that you can't even stand next to someone, you can't breathe on them, they can't breathe on you, you can't touch your loved one, and yet this deviant is out at sex parties while he's promoting all this stuff for COVID, put this bum in jail. Absolutely ridiculous. Again, it's all these people care about themselves. He wants to go out. I mean, listen, he looks a little loose in the pants to me. I'm sure he was out there with freakouts with men too. And I don't care. Listen, I'm not anti-gay. You can do it, love whoever you want to love. But at the same time, this guy, wants to go out there and preach stuff about COVID, and then he's living a funky lifestyle at the same time while COVID's going on. He's a piece of shit. Get this bum out of here.
It doesn't matter what preference of sex you like to have sex with, or if you don't have a preference at all and you just like to have sex. But the bottom line is, if you're just having provocative sex with random people, I mean, I'm sorry, there's the chance of spreading disease is much greater than what he claimed on TV. That he went on time and time again. And I, you know what? I do have a problem with him because right now, if a police officer in New York City had been found that he was popping Molly, he would be fired from his career. Why would the same not hold true for a medical doctor? You're taking ecstasy, and am I supposed to believe that's the only drug you take? Am I supposed to believe you're someone of sound mind and body? I don't. And obviously, you're a complete liar who can't be trusted. His medical license should be revoked. He should be removed from his career immediately. He should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. 1,000%. Here's another video. This comes out, Crowder. I recommend going to his YouTube, the Mug Club, I believe it is. And he basically then confronts him too. And that's great. That's also a great to watch this guy have zero remorse. But here's just another snip that of another piece that Crowder put out.
And if you're 50 years old or above, you need 4 doses.
I'm sure that's consistent when they don't know cameras are running, right?
I know people that won't have sex with someone that didn't get the COVID vaccine. And I don't know enough to know if that's like
bizarre. That's like a weird, I think that's a weird belief that somehow their body is different. It doesn't make any difference at all. Everybody's been exposed to the virus, and they're exposed to the virus because it breathed on you or because you got injected you. It's the same immune response.
Okay, so it turns out science is a thing, and that one looks kind of bad. But
and if you're 50,
doesn't matter, Eric. There's no difference between me and you, Eric. It turns out that actually there is such thing as natural immunity. And the head of New York City, the COVID czar, knew
it. Excuse me. Not only did he know it, that's where it's criminal, is he knew it and he pushed complete opposition to it. He pushed and extorted people to actually take a shot that he knew didn't make a difference. And he's out. Not only that, it's not even like we had a doctor that tried to push it just politically. He's out there at these deviant sex parties. That's why I said, let me go back to what I was saying. I don't care who you have sex with, what you're doing, but that was my point, and you really clarified it. He's having sex with random people, and especially he's having sex. Most likely, it looks like he's probably, the way he's talking about these freakout parties, he's probably having sex with men too, which could spread disease. So you're spreading disease, but at the same time, you're pushing this whole thing with COVID. That's a complete lie. This thing turns out, this really is going to be. I put on Twitter the other day, and I really mean it. This is going to turn out to be the biggest lie in U.S. history. That's what it is. And how many people are behind it? And everyone should be held criminally liable for this lie that led to John having to stand on moral principle to leave his career, Marlon being terminated, numerous other people that lost their lives, lost their jobs. And even if you didn't lose your job, situations like myself, having to deal with losing loved ones and being in that precarious position where you actually can't touch your loved one. And there's plenty of other people on here. I saw comments from other people. Thank you so much for being so kind, for sending your condolences. But there's other people on here. I see people sharing their stories also. Everyone was affected by this lie. That's the bottom line. Everyone in some way, shape, or form, whether you took the vaccine or you didn't, or something happened with a loved one, or you had a relationship that fell, some way, we were all affected by it. Corn Pop had put a comment. I agree. That's the word of the day. She said it was the scamdemic. You're 100% right, Corn. It was a scamdemic.
And then, like, what about, I think about sending my kids to school and putting a mask on their face. And my kids not attending school for 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. And then I walk around, and even in Florida, I walk around New York City, I walk around Florida. All of these kids, the parks are empty. They're weird with each other. They talk on the phone. They play games online, but they don't go out and play with each other. And I'm like, all of these kids were harmed. We stole years, really 3 years of development. We stole from everyone. And I don't care if you were in pre-K or you were in your last year of college. We stole vital years from your childhood. We stole it. And I'm putting me in here. I'm saying we, all of us, we stole it from these kids because we let our fear take hold of us. And Dan Romania is like, are we surprised the Democrats? I'm not saying the Democrats. I'm saying all of us. Every single person. I'm guilty of it. Yeah, I walked away from my career when it got to be too much for me. And I said no more, but I went along with it. Everybody went along with it. Every single one of us in some form or fashion went along with this nonsense. Everybody. Whether it was you kept your mouth shut, whether it is you hid behind a fake handle, whether it was, well, I had to wear a mask to go in here. Well, I had to do this. We all are guilty. We allowed this to happen. We harmed our children. We put our safety over our freedom. We put our safety over common sense. We put our safety over everything. So we're all guilty of it. But we should all be equally outraged by what this man has admitted here. Because we know that the people who appear to pretend to be the elite people, I hate when this thing does this. I don't know why I just did that. But when they appear to be the elite people, the elite amongst us, they like to fancy themselves as that. When I think they are the lowest form of humanity, they think that we're actually cattle and our children are cattle, and they have the right to do and say and tell us anything, and we just have to comply.
Cafecito, good morning. We love Cafecito Break. She had made a comment here that some people were getting arrested for walking into a grocery store maskless. I mean, you're 100% right, John. I have to agree with you. You were talking, I was like, wow, you know what? He's right. Because some way, shape, or form, we all conceded to this lie. We did. I did. You did. We all did. Like, in some way, shape, or form, whether you went to a restaurant and you wore a mask and you took your mask off to eat, or if you just followed some rule by your employment when it came to this, we all followed something, Again, that's why I say this is the biggest lie in U.S. history, and we all were bamboozled by it, and you know what? And rightfully so. What do? They prey on our inability to understand what was going on with this, because we didn't have much knowledge of what the COVID virus was. It's the unknown, and it preyed on that. Because if we had the knowledge, if with the knowledge that we have now, if they try to have a mandate with COVID, everybody would be like, pfft. That's why I say hats off to some of those bar owners and restaurants that actually were in defiance of it, and they stood up, and some of those gyms that said, hell no, we're going to keep working out. I mean, you got to really applaud those people. They really stood out, and they put everything on the line. God bless them. God bless anybody that stood up. Jesse James donated $4.99 to the podcast. John, he said, John, you're right, brother. John, you are correct, but they won't fool us again. I hope you're right. John's 100% right what you just said. They fooled us, but could they fool us again? And unfortunately, I'm going to push back that, Jesse James. I really appreciate the $4.99, but I think they could fool us again with something else. And it's not necessarily that fool us that we're not going to believe it, but we have most people that don't speak up. And they say that only 2% of a group speak out. So if they wanted to transition the police department to do something ridiculous or another agency, could they? They could. And that's the unfortunate part. I think, most people now, people like us, we're going to speak out, but there's still a lot of people that they're just going to fall in line. And they say most people are 2 or 3 paychecks from becoming homeless. Like 70 to, I forgot what the exact numbers are. 70 to 80% of Americans are 2 to 3 paychecks from being homeless. And that's how they bamboozle people. They prey on your weaknesses.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a sad state of affairs. I hope that we all have woken up from this. I mean, I know I have. I know that I made a vow to myself when I left the police department. Like I told you guys before, like I told you people before, like I made a vow to myself. I left the police department. Fox News called my phone. I don't know how they knew that I retired, but they were like, "Hey, do you want to come out? We heard you left over the mandate and you want to come on and speak about it." And I'm like, just sitting there like, no, I don't want to talk about this. Why would I want to go on the news? Why would I want to even talk about this? I want to just go hide in my shell, in my safety comfort zone, because, if I do that, now I'm really going to be ostracized by the New York City Police Department and everyone. And then I just sat there and I was like, wow, what a coward I am. What a coward. I just got forced out of my career. Other people are going to be forced out of their career. I sit here and I tell my children to stand up for what's right. I said, what a coward I'm going to be. What a coward. So I did it. I took the interview and, and fate has it, of course I was ostracized from the NYPD. Everyone that I ever worked for or worked with said I was a moron and I was an idiot and I should just go back to work and do what, and just do what everybody else is doing. And, fate has it, it moves along. But I made that decision at that point in time. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop living a lie. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with what I'm thinking or the questions I have. The people that are wrong are the people that are trying to shut out my opinions and not answer my questions. Those are the people that were wrong. And you know who those people were? It was everybody. It was the Republicans. It was the Democrats. It was the conservatives. It was the strength and honor people that like to say strength and honor. It was the people who swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States of America. It's the people who sit there and tell you they're going to protect and serve. It was everyone. It was the doctors that swore an oath that said they would do no harm to us. It was all of those people. It was every single one of those people treated me like I was a piece of garbage, took vital services from my daughter, who still is affected by this. I told you people, my daughter's legally blind. She has low muscle tone. I ripped of everything. Where I live, where I work, my good standing in the New York City Police Department, my good standing in my community, every single thing. And I wasn't alone. And by the way, God's been very good to me ever since. Ever since then, I wasn't, as much stuff as I went through, I have been blessed the entire time. The entire time, God's blessed me. The people much worse than I've been affected by this. But I'm like, to watch it, and the silence, and to sit here and see John Chell, yeah, John, I'm talking to you, talk about retiring. At least you get to retire when you want to, even though you don't deserve to, because by all means, if what was true was alleged, you should be perp walked out of 1PP as well. They should you should walk out with an FBI raid jacket over your head while the news cameras take pictures of you instead of you getting promoted and you getting to retire. But at least you get to retire when you want to, right? Unlike while you forced everybody else to do something that you and your buddies didn't have to do. Well, you had to do it, but all the people around you didn't have to do it.
Yeah, I think that this, these claims by this doctor, he got caught with his pants down, just really solidifies what we've alleged before. We've alleged that the upper echelon of the police department, especially Mayor Eric Adams, his cronies, Philip Banks, they did not take the vaccine. And I think clearly, John, this really solidifies it because, they're all buddies. So I'm pretty confident that there's definitely some teeth to it. And that most of these people did not take the vaccine. which is a shame. Taking the vaccine, they know how. That's why I say, how do these people sleep at night? Because they know what they're doing. Sherry Alba, thank you so much. Great friend to the podcast. She put a nice comment, John. I agree with her. She says, yes, John, and these are our inalienable rights given by God. You know, I agree. Absolutely. These are inalienable rights given to us by God. John, everything you said here is 100% right, you know, and you talk about the things that you learned out of this, right? So I always believe to turn something bad into something good, right? Which is why I wear the moniker, kind of like a joke and mocking the system, man. I use the handle most complained cop. I had a deposition about a year ago. It was about 7 hours long. It was part of the lawsuit for the riots, and I kept referring to myself as the most complained cop, and they kept getting mad at me, and I said I wasn't referring to myself as Eric, and I did on purpose as a moniker because you turn something bad into something good to mock the system. And what I learned about this, because you always have to turn something bad into something good, and try to learn something even through something like this. And I learned for me that being a good soldier, which I was my entire life, I was a Marine. I spent almost 20 years in the police department, and I think that was valuable. I was always a good soldier. I always was in compliance. Whatever I was told to do, I did it. I didn't question. I never complained. I mean, I used to always make the joke that if I was getting married on a Saturday and if they handed me a notification on Friday night that I had to be detail on Saturday morning, I would cancel the wedding because I would never complain. I'm like, okay, whatever you tell me to do, I never complain to give me a notification that I have to work the following day. It could be within 2 hours. But I think what I learned at the end of it is you have to be the squeaky wheel. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And yes, you have to be a good soldier, but you have to speak up too. And that's what I learned in life. You have to be the squeaky wheel. So I do see this generation, unfortunately they speak up too much, but there is some value. Sometimes you have to go against the grain.
Sherry Alba says we should put this in Times Square on one of those video screens. Honestly, I think we should buy out all the video screens and play this over and over and over again. This person should be shamed. Instead, he's not. Look at his statement. I don't know what I was by, but I guess he was infiltrated by what he wants to say, as I was infiltrated by an operative for an extremist right-wing organization determined to malign public health officials and take down the public health system in America. I stand by my efforts to get New Yorkers vaccinated against COVID-19. Former New York City senior health advisor, Dr. J. Varma. No shame. No shame. No shame. This is his statement. This is a disgusting, disgusting statement.
That's what I'm saying. The people in New York City in this administration and the former administration, they need to be humbled. And the only way to humble these people clearly is to put handcuffs on them. And that's why I say this right now, and I give my word on it for my friends and listen to the podcast. When some of these people start getting perp walked, John and I will fly into New York and we will be there, gladly be there to watch these people get perp walked, because what they did to so many people that had their lives changed, it's absolutely, it's absolutely ridiculous. There is karma, and I do believe things will come back to them. I don't believe in vengeance. Vengeance is something different, because if you seek vengeance, you seek two deaths. You seek the death of someone else and your own. But I do believe in karma. I believe that things come back to you in the way you treat others. There's no doubt about it.
I'm just going to push back on you. I don't believe in karma at all. I believe in the hand of God, and I believe eventually you will pay for your sins, whether it's this life or the next. And I don't think that in the middle of a corruption scandal, in the middle of all of these corruption scandals surrounding New York City, while New York City is being looked on, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams is being looked on as the exact example of how not to run a city. While all this is happening in the perfect timing of all things, this happens, so I don't believe in karma. I believe that this is we're watching God's hand at work. We're watching God's hand at work going after, honestly, people that have proven themselves to literally be demons, to literally being against everything that's good and holy. These people are absolute demons. That you heard the demon in him. He talks it. You see it. Watch the end of that video when he admits that, yeah, it didn't even work. Yeah, it didn't even work. Didn't even matter. Didn't even matter. We just had to do it. That's just how we do it. We'll force you to do it. We'll force you to do it. We'll just take everything from you. That's it. No big deal. No big deal. We'll just take everything from you. You've seen the demon in de Blasio when he was stuffing the French fries in his mouth. You've seen it. You know,
John, I'm just curious because I told you I really got into Buddhism, spending a lot of time in Thailand. I started reading this book, why Buddhism is the truth, and I'm a couple chapters in. It's a great book, but isn't karma and the hand of God kind of like the same thing, right? Because karma is a sum of persons' actions coming back to them, and isn't that kind of like the same thing? It's similar, I would think.
Well, it's so karma is honestly in the Christian religion. If you're a believer in Christ, you're saying that it's the universe, right? You're saying it's the universe. It's not God, right? It's not God. And when people are sitting there sending us messages saying, "Oh, you guys did a great job at taking down this administration and all this stuff," and I'm like, we didn't do anything. We spoke, we gave our opinion, we spoke light into it. That's all we did. That's all we do. We speak our truth. You speak your truth. I speak my truth, which is, I believe, the word of God given to you and you only, and you speak it and you put it out there into the world and things will transpire. So when we sit and say that, oh, it's karma, we're basically saying that it's not God. It's us. It's them who did this. It was their plan. It wasn't them. Right. And that's why I always say, I always fall back on a lot of Bible stories because time and time again, the heroes in the Bible aren't the thousands and thousands of people that came together, right? God removes the cowards first. He sends all the cowards home. And then he leaves you with this small handful of people, or he leaves you with this little boy who stands up against this big giant while everybody's afraid. All of the trained soldiers, the trained warriors are afraid. And he defeats the giant, a champion his entire life, right? Champion. And nobody could sit there and say that the hand of God wasn't at play there. So that's why I don't believe in karma. I don't hate anyone that does. I just don't, but listen,
I respect all religions. That's why I like to, like I said, not a very religious person, but I like to read different things, get an idea. I did get a little into Buddhism. I like some of the ideology. It's really about not being self-serving and meditation, stuff like that. I think it's really good for you. But that's why I mentioned. I think it is kind of similar. I see some people saying yes and no, but either way, I mean, it's interesting.
So, whatever. I don't want to stay on it forever, but, by the same stick you measured, you will be measured. Could that be karma? No, it's who's measuring you. It's not the karma. It's not that's being measured. Somebody's measuring it, So I don't know if anyone put that in here. I didn't get that far down the chat, but if that's what anybody's saying. All right. So after this comes out, big shout out to Bob Holden. I'm actually going to give a shout out to Joe Borelli too in a little bit. But I want to give a big shout out to Bob Holden. Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I want to give a shout out. So Holden, immediately upon this coming out, Bob Holden, Democrat in New York, comes out and calls for an investigation following the disturbing comments from former Mayor Bill de Blasio's COVID czar, Jay Varma. Urges Mayor Adams to rehire city workers and drop lawsuit appeal. Council member Robert Holden today released the following statement in response to comments made by Dr. Jay Varma, the former COVID czar for Mayor Bill de Blasio. This was the public health expert for the city while it was shut down. He was busy having sex parties. He even admitted that his job was to make people's lives really fucking hard. There should be a serious investigation into these comments. It's alarming, especially with so many first responders, city workers, and everyday New Yorkers losing their jobs and being sheltered in to slow the spread while this was happening. Holden is calling for an immediate action into these lights. Mayor Eric Adams must immediately drop all appeals of lawsuits filed by city workers who lost their job due to COVID-19 mandates. These individuals dedicated their lives to the city, and especially in the light of these revelations, it's unconscionable to continue fighting against them. It's time to rehire these city workers. Eric Adams, rehire, recompensate, and reinstate immediately. Great job, Bob Holden.
That's us. And listen, I think Bob Holden is, has been pretty good when it comes to law enforcement and law and order. I think that he's pretty fair. As far as what the common sense caucus goes, I know that he did support Juan Perez and Juan Perez's feat and Juan Perez's conviction with his assault, trying to help Juan Perez. So I've always liked Bob Holden when it comes to the New York City Council. He's one of the few decent ones that are there at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bob Holden's definitely one of the better city councilmen. I will say, when it comes to Eric Adams, though, he gives him a pass on absolutely everything. He's like, when we testified about how ridiculous the mandates were and how they made no sense and how arbitrary and capricious they were, when we testified about all of that, he was like, "Oh, if only Eric Adams knew. If only he knew." I'm like sitting there like, are you kidding me? Like, you are we going to pretend like he didn't know what was happening? I know for a fact people have advocated on all behalves, had actual conversations with Eric Adams. And he was like, "I don't care. No, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care." So, he played, so again, I'm not, I understand there's politics that need to be played, but now's not the time of it. I'm sick of the politics being played, and Bob Holden played well, but I give credit where credit's due. And right now, I'm saying, great job, Bob Holden. I'm going to read this article, and I'm going to say, after I read this article, I'm going to say, great job, Joe Borelli. You there, Eric, or what?
Are you putting the article up?
Yeah, no, it's up. You want me to read it? I'll read it.
Yeah. I thought you were going to start reading. I'm sorry.
All right. New York City COVID advisor brags in secret recording about drug-fueled sex parties mid-pandemic. Had to be sneaky. This comes in from Emily Crane and Anita Bull. New York City's former COVID czar was caught on hidden camera boasting about having drug-fueled sex parties mid-pandemic and admitting New Yorkers would have been pissed if they found out. Dr. J. Varma, who served as a senior health advisor to then Mayor Bill de Blasio and was tasked with running the Big Apple's pandemic response, made the confession in secretly recorded conversations with so-called undercover operative from a conservative podcaster, Steven Crowder's Mug Club. I had to be kind of sneaky about it because I was running the entire COVID response in the city, Varma was filmed telling the unidentified woman on August 1st in what appears to be a restaurant. The edited clips of the hidden camera footage were all recorded between July 27th and August 14th in New York, were released by Crowder on Thursday. The Post had not reviewed the full unedited recordings. The identity of the woman Varma was speaking to or where he met up with her wasn't clear. The nature of their relationship also wasn't clear. Varma, who no longer works for City Hall, admitted to the Post that he participated in 2 gatherings between April 2020 and May 2021, but insisted the secretly recorded conversations had been taken out of context. In one clip recorded on August 14th, Varma was filmed acknowledging it would have been a real embarrassment for the city if he had been busted at the non-socially distant party, despite saying there was no gathering restrictions at the time. We went to some like underground dance parties underneath a bank on Wall Street. We were all rolling and we were all taking Molly, MDMA, and everybody was high. And I was so happy because I hadn't done that in like a year and a half, he said in the clip. So he admits to using drugs and being involved in sex parties numerous times. But I was looking around and being like, fuck, I wonder if anyone sees me, if they're going to be pissed. Because this was not COVID friendly, he added. The only way I could do this job for the city was if I had some way to blow off steam every now and then, he said, according to the video. He also copped to renting a hotel room in the summer of 2020 with his wife and friends. My wife and I had with our friends of August, the first summer. So we rented a hotel. We all took Molly, and it was like 8 or 9 of us to 8 to 10 in a room, and everybody had a blast because everybody was like pent up. He said in a clip dated August 1st. At one point, Varma bragged about his city hall role and how he was now involved in televised COVID briefings, among those to convince de Blasio to enforce a vaccine mandate. I did all this deviant, like sexual stuff, while I was like, like on TV and stuff, people were like, aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed? And I was like, no, actually, I'm like, I love being my authentic self. He was filmed saying in July 27th clip. So Eric, his authentic self. So I didn't get to be my authentic self. You didn't get to be your authentic self. Marlon Bethel didn't get to be his authentic self. Michael Caine didn't get to be his authentic self. Rose Angel from Cafecito Break didn't get to be her authentic self. Millions of New York City residents didn't get to be their authentic self because we had to abide by these draconian mandates that this man made up that he didn't abide by. What do you think about him getting a chance to be his authentic self?
You know what's amazing, right? He wants to be his authentic self, and it's like, poor him, boo-hoo. Like, I had to take this difficult job, and I had to blow off steam, so I had to take a little MDMA and go to a party because, this is a difficult job. What about New York City police officers? What about New York City firemen? What about New York City teachers? What about New York City sanitation workers? What about our nurses and doctors, not doctors like this one, that were out there that couldn't be their authentic selves. They were out there doing difficult jobs. I mean, anybody that was doing a job out there, all the people that were denied services, and just everybody that was mistreated, pretty much general population, unless you're a doctor like this who gets to go to freak out parties and you get to be your authentic self because you got to blow off steam and take MDMA. What a crock of shit this loser is. Absolutely. Again, that's why I say these people belong in jail, honestly. And I just want to, on a side note, say there's a lot of conversations here about religion. I just want to say that John and I both respect all different religions. It's good to have a discussion. I know I'm reading about Buddhism right now. I am born Jewish, but I have respect for all religions. I know Sherry had put up stuff about Christians and not being self-serving. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I respect all religions, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever the case is. We respect all religions, but it's nice to discuss. And, I like to learn about different thoughts. I always ask John because John's really into it. I ask him questions about the Bible. So it's good. But thank you so much. So let's get back on topic with this. Again, this guy is an animal. He has to be his authentic self. And like I said, boo-hoo, his job is so hard. He has to go out and do MDMA. But New York City police officers, they can't even smoke a joint.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we found out who his authentic self was, and his authentic self is a piece of shit. That's who his authentic self is taking drugs and having deviant sex. That's who your authentic self is, Jay Varma. I hope you and your lawyer are watching this too, because I'll have no problem testifying about it in court. Absolutely none. Absolutely. This is infuriating. All right. Where was I? Okay.
Are you being your authentic self?
I'm being my authentic self, and Jay Varma, I don't think he's gonna like it.
I think you know who should be their authentic self. I wish Juju would be himself. Just be yourself, John, Kaz, whoever you are. Just be yourself.
Yeah. He actually said I got my New York City card taken, and I gotta request permission to come. Anyway, I'll be there next week, and I think I'm going to go join Katie Honan at some City Hall. I think maybe some people need to answer some of my questions because they've been avoiding a lot of the questions that I have. So I think maybe I need to show up at City Hall too, just so everybody knows, everybody knows who got their card pulled in New York City and who did it.
Bring some mints. Bring some mints.
I'll bring. I don't need any mints. I brush my teeth like 4 times a day.
You can give it to. When you see Banks give a mint, hey buddy, here's your mint.
Yeah. All right. So I did all this deviant sexual stuff, and I was like, like on TV and stuff, people were like, "Aren't you afraid? Aren't you embarrassed?" And I was like, "No, actually, I love being my authentic self." He said it, filmed in a July 27th clip. Varma, in a statement, acknowledged, "I take responsibility for not using the best judgment at the time." But he also slammed the recording, saying he's being targeted by an operative for an extremist right-wing organization determined to malign public health officials and take down a public health system in America. In those private conversations that was secretly recorded, spliced, diced, and taken out of context, I referred to the events that transpired 4 years ago. Yes, you did, my friend. And they weren't sliced and diced. Those were full statements. Absolutely, they were. The extra, and you know how you're going to know that? Because he's not going to file a lawsuit. And if he does, it's going to go absolutely nowhere. So that's how you're going to know that it wasn't sliced and diced. Those were his exact statements. Maybe there were clips of the conversations taken out. The ex-de Blasio official went on to that he stood by the advice he gave to New Yorkers at the time. Of course you did. Facing the greatest public health crisis in a century, our top priority was to save lives. And every decision made was based on the best available science to keep New Yorkers safe. So was the science to have deviant sex while you were taking MDMA with random people? Okay. Varma is currently employed as the chief medical officer for a pharma company called Siga Technologies, according to his LinkedIn. Siga, I think that, like John Chell, his offer for work should be rescinded. Unfortunately, I think John Chell is going to be your next low integrity chief of department. We shall see. So shout out to Joanne Ariola. Here we go. Several lawmakers fumed over the newly released footage, with council member Joanne Ariola, Republican Queens, telling the Post it showed the perverse corruption of the de Blasio administration, as well as the perverse corruption of the Adams administration, because he knew it too. This guy was running around like a drug-fueled Caligula, mandating that ordinary New Yorkers suffer in lockdown and lose their livelihood while he throws himself parties that could make a rock star blush, Ariola said. So for those of you that don't know who Caligula was, he was a Caesar. He was a Roman Caesar. He used to have his people have sex with animals. He beheaded everyone. He was completely insane. So that's what Joanne Ariola is referring to. Eric, what do you think about Joanne Ariola's statement?
Well, I love history, so referring to Caligula, it's quite interesting. Absolutely, I think she's right here. She's on target here. This is insane that we're even talking about this. That we've gotten this far. That everybody knew about this, and even someone put a comment here that cops had to cut each other's haircuts in the precinct. Couldn't even go to a barber. It's so true. I remember that. We had pretty much like a barbershop set up in PSA 7 in the locker room because these guys couldn't go out and get a haircut. Everyone was affected by this. This is insane, dude. I can't believe we're talking about this, but hey, at least we can be our authentic selves.
Yeah, at least we can be our authentic selves. Oh, guys, don't worry. Bootlicker News is coming out with a big story soon. A really big story. Yeah. Fed. All right, guys, we got 2,500 people in here. If you guys could just do us a favor, like, share out the space, subscribe, check the bell, repost, retweet, let us know your thoughts. We're trying to get to everybody's comments, but we got a lot going on. We're talking about baby Caligula, Dr. J. Varma, who hopefully after today is no longer have a doctor's license.
Yeah, get rid of that bum. Seriously, that bum doesn't deserve to have a license. He really belongs in jail. This is insane. But what is crazy about this is there's not even an apology. Just there's no shame. He's in his own mind, he has justified. It's okay to extort the general population. That's how self-serving these people are. That's how much they love to abuse power. They only think about themselves. Oh, everything's so hard. I had to take Molly. I had to go to a hotel room to party with 9 people. But meanwhile, everybody else can't even go to the store. You can't even go to a restaurant. You got to get your hair cut in a precinct. You can't even go to a barbershop. This is the biggest lie in U.S. history. And I think Caligula is perfect to refer it to. You're not kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So this is coming in from Soft Joe, Tender Hands Joe, who usually is nowhere on anything, but I got to give him credit here. Joe, I agree with you 100%. Dr. Varma's pathetic attempt to impress a date further reveals what we all knew, that the leaders who shut down businesses, told us not to celebrate Thanksgiving, and fired workers for not taking a vaccine have always been full of shit, added Council Member Joe Borelli. Joe, thank you. You found your nuts. It only took you 4 years. Congratulations, bro. Congratulations.
Yeah, but John, it's $1 late, $1 short, because where was he back then? Where was he when it counted? You know what? At the same token, you know what? I believe that people can redeem themselves. I do believe they deserve second chances. So I'll give Joe Borelli a second chance. You know, I hope this is not just theatrics, because he's at a point where he's hoping a special election comes down and he has an opportunity to get himself in. And now is a good opportunity to put your big boy pants on. And this is just a great opportunity for him to reflect on and say how ridiculous this is. So I hope it's not for his own benefit. I hope that he actually means it, and I hope that he actually pushes forward.
Well, why is he not out there right now with Marlon Bethel saying, I want this man rehired right now?
That's my point.
Right now with back pay. Where is he? This is a nice statement from you, Joe, but it's time to check your man card, bro, because I pulled it a couple of years ago from you and you still haven't got it back. So although this is a nice fancy statement for the press, you know, and I think that your quote, what they call you, is called dial a quote, because they know that you're just going to say what they want you to say. But this was actually a real quote, and I applaud you for that, but that's about the only thing I applaud you for. So meanwhile, Councilmember Robert Holden, Democrat out of Queens, urged the city to rehire municipal workers who lost their jobs. These individuals dedicated their lives to the city, and especially in light of these revelations, it's unconscionable to continue fighting against them in court. It's time to rehire these city workers and make things right, Mr. Mayor, said Holden, who stressed there should be a serious investigation into Varma's comments. The Post reached out to Bill de Blasio, but didn't hear back. A rep for Eric Adams said that Varma's statement is not, nor has ever been, a member of this current administration, and praised the city's Department of Health for its work during the pandemic. This guy is a piece of garbage. Anyway, Varma back in, and let's not forget, Eric Adams fired Marlon Bethel. Let's not forget that. The champion of diversity, the champion of youth, the champion of immigrants, illegal immigrants, not legal ones, obviously, because Marlon came here legally. The champion of all of those who just appointed an all-white man to be the police commissioner, fired a legal immigrant to this country, a black man named Marlon Bethel. That was Eric Adams. That wasn't Bill de Blasio. That was Eric Adams. And you know when he fired? You know when he fired Marlon Bethel? He fired him after we had 2 police officers that were murdered, and he touched one of their caskets. He touched one of their cars, and everyone's like, look, he's a cop. He cares. And I said at that funeral, and I'll say it here again, if those 2 officers made the same decision Marlon did, he would have fired their ass the next week, too. He didn't give a shit about anybody either. Eric Adams for prison 2024.
You know what this says, John? You know what this says to me right now? Everything is starting to come full circle, right? I mean, initially, it always, I always pondered and said to myself, wow, Mayor de Blasio took this thing to the 1-yard line, and Adams takes it to the touchdown. He's at the end zone. I always said, like, why? You're a cop. You get it. You weren't a good cop, but you get it. You understand how many people we need in this force to let all these people go. He said he doesn't discard people. But really right now, the more that we think about it, at this comes full circle, maybe this really comes down to sex parties. Honestly, maybe this whole thing, this whole ball of wax, this whole corruption scandal, everything comes down to sex parties. Maybe Adams was at these sex parties. Maybe de Blasio was there. Maybe they all have blackmail on each other, and everyone else is paying for it. Maybe they all have blackmail on each other, and you know what? If you don't continue this mandate for political pressure, then we'll expose you about these sex parties. I mean, who knows? If that's the way, honestly, that's the way it's starting to look. I mean, we see what's going on with Diddy, all this federal corruption probe, this guy speaking about these freak parties while COVID's going on, everyone's wearing a mask. Eric Adams gave Diddy a key. Maybe all these people are intertwined when it comes to these sex parties. I wish Damian Williams could tell us right now, but I'm sure at some point we're going to find out, because that's what it's starting to seem like. It seems like this whole thing is based around these sex parties.
So anyway, the Finest Unfiltered has unveiled here Freak Off lubricant, free with your 20th COVID booster shot. This is the official lubricant of the Adams administration of deviance. So here it is, freak off lubricant. There's Dr. J Varma with it in his hand. Obviously, this is a joke. It's a meme. And big shout out to the king of memes, Alamo Defender 1, for sharing. This is what we see in New York City. Is
this racist? Is this
definitely. Everything we do. Just
you know what, John? You know what? The only thing Marlon did wrong. The only thing that Marlon did wrong, because he got terminated by the police department. God bless him, great detective. But the only thing that Marlon did wrong is he didn't go to these sex parties. Maybe if Marlon would have went to these sex parties, that he would still have a job, because apparently that's what it seems like. Like I said, hats off to Marlon. I'm really sorry what happened to you. Like you said, he's a legal immigrant who came to this country, wants the American life, and he got discarded by the police department. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. We have to acknowledge it. It's terrible what happened to you. There's other people also that are just like Marlon. We just don't have their names, but it's sad, and John had to stand on moral principle, and it's just insane, honestly, shout out to Alamo Defender 1 also that for making those memes. That's outstanding. We appreciate it. Team of finest Unfiltered. John, we got anything, brother?
So Eric Adams just cleared his schedule for today, but he's expected to appear on the Reset Talk Show in a bit. But yeah, and then we got I think you made mention to it earlier. Frank Carone, former mayor, still Mayor Eric Adams' confidant. Him and a church and its pastor have their business records taken by the feds. So not a good sign. Frank, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Hope everything's well. Start selling those assets. You're gonna need the money.
No, John, it's interesting. Marlon put a great comment here, and that's true. Just to show you how everybody was bamboozled. Marlon, shout out, brother. He put, I can't tell you how many arguments I got into with people, including my own family, trying to convince them that this thing was bogus. That's a strong statement. That's so true. I mean, just think about how divisive COVID was, right? Because people had their beliefs, how strongly they believed that COVID was real or COVID is not real, whatever, whatever COVID's real or not, but whatever stance you took on it and what protections you need or don't need, it's so true. It's so divisive that I do believe that it even broke up families.
Yeah, so Tom Toms comes in and he says there are several active lawsuits against the mandate from cops, teachers, sanitation workers, firefighters, a lot of different lawsuits going out there, and actually like some freedom groups as well. A lot of different lawsuits. Like I said before, Eric Adams could reinstate and compensate everyone, and it would cost less than a month of what he's doing to litigate all these lawsuits. But he refuses to do that because he himself is a low integrity, what appears to be one of the most corrupt mayors in New York City history. I put out a post yesterday. Jimmy Walker resigned his post. Jimmy Walker was under several federal corruption investigation. He referred to himself as the night mayor. Eric Adams refers to himself as the nightlife mayor. Eric Adams and Jimmy Walker share one thing in common right now. They're the only New York City mayors to have 3 police commissioners in one term. So they share that. Jimmy Walker resigned in 1932, I believe. He resigned his post as mayor during those federal investigations. But at that time, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the governor of New York, and he was getting ready to actually remove Jimmy Walker from his post as mayor. Till today, the governor does have the ability to remove the mayor from his office. And if we had a governor today, if I was the governor, I would have removed Eric Adams a long time ago. I also would have removed Alvin Bragg from office. But it has never been used. The power has never been excised in New York City history. So that was the only time it looked like it was going to happen. And Jimmy Walker resigned his post, the night mayor. So that's where we're at right now. We had a mayor in 1932 who resigned from mayor, Jimmy Walker. He had 3 police commissioners in one term. He was under several federal investigations for corruption. Eric Adams, who deems himself the nightlife mayor, is under several investigations for a federal corruption scandal and has had 3 police commissioners in 1 term. He has not resigned his post as of yet.
Well, actually, Eric Adams, his case is even worse because under Jimmy Walker, he had 3 police commissioners that were actually appointed police commissioners. Mayor Eric Adams has 2 police commissioners appointed on him. The 3rd one was not his appointment. This one is actually appointed asked by prosecutors, and also is the interim PC, which means that potentially we could have 4 police commissioners by the time that Mayor Eric Adams is out of office. This is by far, this is a first of many. This is far more egregious than it was with Jimmy Walker. But John, don't you think that the more that we get into this, I mean, think about it. Even if you're a super Democrat or you're anti-police, wouldn't you want a larger police force? Wouldn't you want the largest fire department you could have? The most amount of teachers? Even if you just completely have this anti-police rhetoric, but at the same time, your campaign is built on prosperity and public safety, wouldn't you want a larger force? That's why I think this whole mandate may be linked to these sex parties. We don't know, but to me, I mean, it sounds like there might be blackmail because I can't figure it out. But now that this stuff is starting to get exposed, it seems like it's starting to make sense to me. What do you think, John? Do you think it's possibly linked to these sex parties?
I don't think this is a coincidence that we just continuously hear about drug-fueled sex parties. I don't think it's a coincidence that Eric Adams is hanging out at places that it's alleged that they have drug-fueled sex parties. I don't think anything's a coincidence. I don't. I think a lot of things are coming to a light that are really disgusting that we all knew and we all said. I mean, it's rumored that Eric Adams is a deviant. He looks like a deviant to me. I've said it numerous times. I think that he's a deviant. I don't think that he has any sexual morality either, based upon things that we've been told and rumors that we've heard. I have no doubt that he could have. It wouldn't shock me if it came out that he was on video at a Diddy party. Ain't no party like a Diddy party. That's what LeBron James said. Ain't no party. So it wouldn't shock me at all if that came out. Obviously, the people they surround themselves with are having drug-fueled sex parties. He's spoken about using drugs several times. The famous clip where he calls cops crackers when he says, I was kicking those crackers' asses every day when I was in the New York City Police Department. I was unbelievable in the New York City Police Department. He actually says that he'd rather, at one point, he'd rather be out here doing that white and smoking that weed. And I'm like, nobody picked up on that. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about that part that he admitted to using drugs and all that other stuff. And they're talking about how dangerous. They actually had a press conference yesterday talking about how dangerous it was, where they raided a guy that was growing marijuana in a building, an apartment building. And he was talking about how dangerous illegal marijuana was. And I'm like, well, while they're destroying it, and I just, again, they're destroying evidence, and I don't believe it was even properly accounted for. They're destroying evidence that I don't believe was properly accounted for. So if it wasn't properly accounted for, am I going to really trust that the accounting was right and the proper amount was destroyed? Like when I watch them destroy from these marijuana raids, I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, we're never going to know if anything was missing. They're destroying the evidence, right? So how am I? Oh, yeah, no, we burned 30 boxes. How do I know if they only burned 25?
Yeah, we burned 34. Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. Like, who's doing the accountability here? I mean, everything's getting just, pretty much disseminated and destroyed. So how do we know? I mean, and clearly Anthony Miranda doesn't even know where the money goes. We don't know anything. But that's this administration. That's what we're dealt with. We have to vote better. Again, I think that the mayor has way too much power. I think we really exposed that the New York City politics is really infected, and we need a different political makeup, more of like what we see in different states, where you have counties that make up a city and you have elected officials. Where here we have, you have cities that make up a county, but here in New York you have 5 counties that make up the city, and we have a different political legislative body. So let's switch gears. Shout out to Sal Greco. Sal Greco, of course, has been a good friend of the podcast here. Has been Alliance and really been at the forefront when it comes to concept fritos and exposing the hypocrisy that illustrious members of the police department along with high-profile politicians, they patronize Sofritos, which is known to have a criminal element there, and people that have a criminal history, which should not be associated with the police department. So here we have centered in this picture is Chief Miguel Iglesias, who is the Chief of Internal Affairs. And let's get right into this. I'll let John explain it right now. But this is very important to the case that John and I followed, Internal Affairs. So, John, let's get right into it.
So this picture is from I don't know if it's a Christmas party. I know that there was a Christmas party that happened that was sanctioned and actually attended by members of the Internal Affairs Bureau of the NYPD at a place called Con Sofritos, which was illegally operating in an illegal operating shed. It was recently shuttered. It's been the highlight of a lot of news articles recently. I've spoken to you about it, that the owner had came out of his face and threatened me online. Still till today, I have no idea why. It was all around the same time that John Chell and Kaz Daughtry had sent their paid goons, as well as their legal representation, to smear, slander, attempt to defame, and intimidate us from no longer doing this podcast or speaking out online. At the same time that was happening, Kaz Daughtry was talking about us while he's winning an award. You see that at the end of this show every time we play it when he talks about the retired guys. You saw the numerous tweets from this administration, both Eric Adams, John Chell, Kaz Daughtry, attacking this podcast, not without naming us, but with naming us, a bunch of guys in Wisconsin, things of that nature. BMS, Eric Dimwit, EDW, hashtag EDW. So all that stuff was going on. IB was actually pulling in hundreds of officers, interviewing them, showing them my Instagram, and asking them if they know me. So we had filed a complaint into IAB that all this stuff was going on. Like, we're getting threatened from criminals that the upper echelon of the NYPD associate with. We're having criminal investigations put against us, unlawful criminal investigations that are being drummed up to just try and attempt to shut us down and intimidate us by this man that you see in the middle, the Chief of Internal Affairs. And we said that they're all criminally associating with a known criminal at a place that's operating illegally. So after that happened, the New York City Police Department changed the definition of criminal association. Right? It's so convenient. Oh, when we break the law, we just change the definition of it. That's it. We break our own policy, but it doesn't matter because we put that complaint in prior. So I don't care what you guys changed it to. You still terminated numerous cops for that same allegation that you now changed it. That actually makes their termination completely illegal, even though their termination was illegal. And so Sal Greco has put this out. What you see is Rafael Salamanca, who is a city council member, land share. He's in charge of the land share, so he's the one that should know that this business has numerous unpaid fines against it, was operating illegally, and he did absolutely nothing about it. So they're at this place, Con Sofritos. You see Sergeant Dennis Rodriguez, the president of the New York City Dominican Officers Association, was rumored to have retired and put his papers in, but apparently he did not. So that was just a rumor. That was another rumor that didn't happen, like John Chell and Marjorie were retiring. Even though I think you're going to see Marjorie leave, and I guess John Chell is going to get the bump, whatever. But in the middle of it is the Chief of Internal Affairs hanging out at a place with people that we allege the rest of the upper echelon is. And when we had filed an internal affairs complaint, we had noted in that complaint. Let me read to you what exactly we wrote.
That's so funny. I was going to read the email. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, do it.
So,
I actually pulled up the email right now. I was about to read it. Go ahead.
So this is what we wrote. John and I will address the questions you have and provide the information we have attained so far. However, this will not be an all-accompanying list, and we expect a fair and thorough investigation, the same as you would provide to any member of the public. We aren't happy so far with your response to the allegations we have charged and your misrepresentation of our written word. We will provide the requested information as well as address the concerns we have with your omissions and misinterpretations of what we wrote, including your investigative steps, your questions, and your responses to the very serious corruption and or misconduct allegations we charged. So we did this all by email because we knew that if we called the Internal Affairs Bureau, they would omit what we said and they would misconstrue our words. So even though we emailed them, they still to today try to mix up our words and omit things that we told them. So we said, we are highly disturbed by the lack of urgency, care, and compassion regarding identifying the threats against our children. But that is exactly what is being inferred in these images. These children in these photos are not our children, but we expect the nation's largest police force to take these threats very seriously, not only against our children, but the children in these photos. These children should be immediately identified and their parents should be notified. And what those photos are, people, is a photo of two little girls. And it says, you have a nice family. I hope they live a long life. I have two little girls. And that's what that was being inferred, because every threat that this person disseminated online was being put out indirectly towards us. But the totality of the circumstances dictated that the threats were directly against myself and Eric. And then he had put a picture out of a woman with a little boy who could have been Eric's son. And Eric does have a son. And it said the same thing. You have a beautiful family. I hope they live a long life and nothing happens to them. As well as numerous photos of an AK-47 and maps to Florida and all of these different things that they were coming down to get us.
And duct tape.
And all this other stuff. So these children should be identified and their parents should be notified. This is a very serious allegation from a disturbed individual who appears to be a uniformed member of the NYPD, should not be met with such a cavalier response as it was in question number 13. From our experiences in the NYPD and now as members of the public, we would not expect such a lack of concern. And we would have thought this clearly would be the top priority in the case. Before we provide the requested information, we need to ensure there's no conflict of interest. Nor will there be a breach in confidentiality in this investigation, as this would further endanger our safety and the safety of our families. It has been well documented in the media, as well as through our own investigation, that the Internal Affairs Bureau recently co-sponsored an event at Con Sofritos, as well as numerous other organizations, bureaus, precincts, and individual officers in the NYPD have attended these events or patronized this establishment. We would like the commanding officer of Group 1, who was and is Joseph Profeta from the Special Investigation Unit. Joe, I hope you listen to this because, we're going to be dropping numerous allegations on you as well. And Sergeant Galvez, along with we would like the commanding officer, Joseph Profeta, to ensure that you, Sergeant Galvez, who is the investigating officer in this case, along with anyone else involved in this investigation, has never been to Con Sofritos, nor has ever met with Jimmy Rodriguez, who's the person who threatened me, who was the police commissioner's brother's business partner, which I still don't know why he threatened me. We don't know. Nor has relationships with anyone that has, nor is a member of any fraternal organizations or any group that has had a party at Con Sofritos. Anyone that has done the above must immediately recuse themselves from this investigation, including the commanding officer, who is Miguel Iglesias himself. We also want to ensure all of those conducting this investigation have never worked directly with, supervised, or have been supervised by any of the subjects. We would like to be notified of the results of this conflict of interest audit prior to proceeding with the requested information. Eric, do you have up there the response?
That's what I'm going to read right now. Are you ready? Here's the response from the good Sergeant Richard Galvez. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, lieutenants. I have requested the names, handles of the individuals that have made the threats to you and your family in the previous email in order for this investigation to be expedited. We take these complaints very seriously. The questions that were being asked are not placed in priority. The safety of you both and your families are top priority. That's bullshit. As it relates to Con Sofrito, the members of IAB Special Investigations Unit are not affiliated or have ever patronized this restaurant. Furthermore, there is no nexus between members of this unit and Jimmy Rodriguez. I would like to assure you that this case has lockdown access, which enables only members of the IAB Special Investigations Unit to gain access. Please contact me if you have any questions and concerns. Sergeant Richard Galvez, Special Investigations Unit, Group 1, Internal Affairs Bureau. Keep in mind, it says here, I just want to read again to you. The members of IAB Special Investigations Unit are not affiliated or have ever patronized this restaurant. John, can you show them? Do you have the flyer? I'd love to show them that.
Well, it doesn't even matter. The flyer doesn't matter, but the flyer is whatever. They have there's the IAB logo on here. But who is in charge ultimately of the Special Investigations Unit? Who's ultimately in charge of it? The guy you see sitting in the middle, Miguel Iglesias, right? Sitting there hanging out with a New York Dominican Officers Association, right? So Miguel Iglesias did not recuse himself from this investigation. He was appointed by Edward Caban, who we also made allegations against. So the whole investigation is tainted. And so what happened? Our children were threatened. We alleged that it was a uniformed member of service. And guess what IAB did tell us? It was a uniformed member of service. Guess what we know, but we don't know from IAB? We know because we know that it was what? It was a supervisor in the NYPD that was threatening us. And NYPD Internal Affairs will not release his name or his rank. The only thing they will tell us is that he is no longer a member of the New York City Police Department. They refuse to take a report for us for the fact that our children were threatened. They will not give us any information as to what happened whatsoever. The majority of our allegation rested around the fact that the NYPD Police Commissioner's brother's business partner was threatening me. I alleged that NYPD Police Commissioner Ed Caban had given my name, right? He had given my name. It's the only thing that made sense to me. I don't understand why, if it was something against the podcast or anything on social media, clearly he would have threatened Sal Greco, because I don't care. I could give two shits about Jimmy Rodriguez. Oh, he would have threatened Eric Dim as well. He didn't. He only threatened me. Why? And I'm like, why? And I'm like, At that time, I think most people think that I make the memes. I make some of them, but I don't make a lot of them. Most of them, I just share them. I share them. I think a lot of people think I make the memes. And at that time, a meme had just came out about Ed Caban, and it was him on one of his trips to Qatar, and he was sitting there with all the gold, and he had like a dashiki on, or whatever you want to call it. And I think I had nothing else to go by other than Ed Caban gave him my name. So the threat was around that. The allegations were around that. The allegations were around that we had numerous identified and unidentified police officers while they were on duty coming on social media, trying to intimidate, threaten, defame, slander us. And it was being done at the behest of John Chell and Kaz Daughtry under the advice of their legal team, who was also threatening, defaming us online. And he was identified as well. Actual conversations between Daughtry and the team were alluded to. Conversations between John Chell and the team that were attacking us while they were at work making overtime, we alluded to. We submitted irrefutable evidence of that to Internal Affairs. And then obviously about our children being threatened. And nothing has been being done about any of this. Misuse of police resources. Our private personal information was being had. Tanya Kinsella had her little fat dweeb little sergeant in her office calling around, asking people where I work, where I live. So did the PC's office. So did the chief of patrol. So did Fat Daughtry and all of his friends, calling around where I work, where I live, all things of that nature. So we're sitting here saying, wow, the police department is misusing taxpayer funds because they're butthurt about memes. They're butthurt about opinions. And they're coming after First Amendment speech. And we said that and we blasted it out online. And then all of a sudden it became a big deal when they went after a couple of reporters, much less than they came after me and Eric, by the way. Until today, myself and Eric's are under consistent threat from the upper echelon of the NYPD and of the New York City Mayor's office and all of his cohorts.
Tom put a comment here. Go to the SDNY with your IB case. Absolutely, that's going to be the next step when this case comes to a close, because we know this case is going to be completely botched. Or maybe we'll go there before. But at some point, that is definitely going to be the next step. I mean, there's clear corruption going on with this case. Simultaneously, this has happened on two fronts. So John is being threatened by Jimmy Rodriguez from Consafritos, while simultaneously, I'm getting personalized phone calls to my personal phone 3 days in a row, 3 in the morning, from the fake moniker All Cops Awoke. So keep in mind, behind All Cops Awoke is an active member of the service that John just spoke about. So the active member of the service that we were informed was a supervisor of the NYPD and left the job. That's the information that we have. That we got from a credible source. But what we got from Sergeant Richard Galvez is we were told that he could not release us the identity of All Cops Awoke. And I asked Sergeant Galvez, well, how do we know someone's not going to try to blow off the back of our heads? How do we remain safe right now when we don't know the identity? He said we should be happy they're no longer employed by the police department. Well, that makes it even worse because we don't know the identity, and someone who's out there completely unhinged is no longer employed, and they may think it's a reference because of our allegations. So the police department this time told us to file a complaint. You ready for this? The complaint, we're being harassed and threatened by a member of the service of the NYPD. And we were informed by the Internal Affairs, by Sergeant Richard Galvez, to make a report in Florida. And then Florida would then contact the NYPD. That's the most ridiculous thing we've ever heard. Absolutely. And then in order to get the information, that makes no sense. But again, it's just another way they're trying to stonewall myself and John and trying to close out this case and trying to take it in a different direction without giving us any information. John and I spoke to Richard Galvez yesterday. We had a brief conversation, and I asked Sergeant Galvez just to make sure that he received this email showing the complete direct conflict of the information he provided to us when it comes to Consafritos. And we were told by Sergeant Richard Galvez that the investigation is going good. So I said, what does that mean? Define good, please. He said, exactly. Good for you because you're getting rid of this investigation and you're getting rid of these allegations, or good for us because you solidified our allegations. This is completely corrupt. It exposes the fact of what John and I have been saying. The Internal Affairs Bureau cannot do the investigations internally within the police department when it involves the upper echelon, especially leadership. It must be outsourced and independent. And if this investigation does not take the proper course, then we will seek SDNY. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Arnold says, make more memes. The Sal Greco says, Internal Affairs co-sponsored a party at Consafrito on 1/6/2024. They never checked the background like they should for any NYPD event, or their chief, who's a patron, must not care. So obviously, we've said it before. We'll say it again. Either they're too stupid and too incompetent to be able to properly investigate themselves, or he's in on it. Either way, it doesn't matter. Miguel Iglesias needs to be removed from Internal Affairs. The Internal Affairs Bureau of the NYPD cannot properly investigate allegations of corruption when it comes to the upper echelon of the NYPD. Say it again. So what we're saying is the police cannot police themselves, obviously, because nothing, depending on who the mayor is, systems fail. Said it before, I'll say it again. Rudy Giuliani had made the statement. Corruption is the default position of New York City. In order to not have that be the default position in New York City, it has to be actively weeded out. But under Eric Adams, the weeding stopped. It's allowed to grow and fester. And so these 4 separate investigations, federal corruption investigations, are going to return into 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. You people are going to be sitting here with your mouth open, and we're going to be sitting here bringing you the low integrity things that are happening like we do basically every day on the show. And nothing's being done about it. You know, right now, absolutely nothing's being done about it. The allegations we alleged and the things we said all tie in to everything that's coming out now. Every single piece of it. Every single piece of it. You think that if the police department's taking care of minor summonses for you, or the FDNY is taking care of minor violations for you, or the state liquor authorities taking care of minor violations for you, you think they're not overlooking sex trafficking? You think they're not overlooking drug dealing? You think they're not overlooking trafficking of children? You think they're not overlooking this? Do you really believe it's just for little summonses? I don't.
I tell you right now, the bottom line is, keep in mind, John and I had sent out communication with the Internal Affairs in January of 2024. It's almost a year now this case is going on. We've been provided with no information, all left in the dark. All we're told is that this investigation is progressing. We're actually told it's going good, which I don't even know what that means. Good for who? We were told all cops are woke, provided a compelled statement, and that's why they could not release the information. So I said, wait a minute, what do you mean by compelled statement? Are we defending all cops are woke? Because compelled statement means a statement that's under stress and duress. And we were told, oh, sorry, we used the wrong terminology. So you know what? Be choosy with your words. Again, all cops are woke threatened our lives. And at this point, you know what? With all this federal corruption probe going on, we have to take it seriously. Are we afraid? Absolutely not. I refuse to be afraid of any man. And neither does John. But we are alarmed, and sure as hell, we will take care of our families and we'll make sure that they're safe. So we take these threats seriously. The threats to John from Jimmy Rodriguez, we take those seriously also, since it's connected to Consafritos, which is at the center of this federal corruption probe. And there has to be some muscle behind this if you're going to carry out a racketeering scheme, if there's actually any teeth to this. So again, we're going to continue this pursuit. We're not going to back down. I'm sure we may face some more threats going on right now that they know the next step will be SDNY if this is not carried out properly. So now the question is, what is Richard Galvez? What is his involvement? Is he a member of the Hispanic Society? Did he go to the Christmas parties? That's another thing we like to know. What other conflicts of interest will come up in this case? Because sure enough, the Chief Miguel Iglesias of Internal Affairs, him being the chief, that's a huge problem. This case should have been immediately outsourced, or we should have been informed that he was at Consafritos, and we were told that no one has ever, that's a strong statement, has patronized Consafritos from the Internal Affairs Bureau, and we have the proof right here with that email.
100%. So listen, we'll be back at you guys Monday, 8:05. It'll be a little shorter episode. I think Eric's got to do a hard out. He's got some things he got to take care of. Yep. But we'll be back. We'll see you guys Monday. We appreciate all of you. We had 2,700 people on here. Appreciate everybody, all the likes, all the comments, all the hate, everything. I think it was a good podcast. I don't think we need to go any longer. We've been going on 3 hours. Like we said, I think he politically created crisis, and I got a good track record. He endorsed kind of the PBA. We're actually the voice of what is beneficial for the rank and file. The PBA endorsement no longer matters. They're corrupted. They're part of the Democratic machine in New York City. They continuously give money to people who supported the defund the police movement, who work against the health, welfare, benefits, pay, safety of not only their members, but their members' families as well, safety of all of New York City. They work directly against New York City. So they are no longer the voice of the rank and file. Their opinions no longer matter. But everything we talked about, obviously politically created crisis. Check out our friend Tom Sullivan. After we play his video, we'll come back. We'll give you our closing thoughts.
One second before the video. I just want to say, Franklin Valdez, who I support, he's put Pat Hendry's a bum, throw him out. You're right. Bum. That's the next bum. Thank you very much.
Pat Hendry's a bum with 3 strands of hair. Throw him out. All right. We'll come back, give our closing thoughts right after the video. Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
Listen, I just want to say this was another great episode. Thank you so much, friends, listeners. Sitting with us for 3 hours, weighing in with your comments. I think we went over a lot of great topics. We're talking about the COVID Czar. We're talking about the biggest lie that I think will be in U.S. history. We talked about Anthony Miranda, the hypocrisy there with Fritos. We talked about our internal affairs complaint. So we gave you a lot of information here. Support us with this complaint. I think these allegations are very serious, and I don't think the police department is taking it serious at all, especially with the internal affairs. I see a high level of corruption. Our investigation is obviously completely botched. They would refuse to provide the information on people that actually made threats to our lives. That's absolutely ridiculous. And you have to ask yourself, what if there were two just ordinary civilians who made a complaint? What would happen to them? If they could do this to two retired police officers, what could they do to just two ordinary civilians? And I think they showed what they could do. And on those thoughts, I want to say thank you. John, if you'd like to close it out. And I appreciate everybody in New York's Finest for Unfiltered podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to get a final closing thought here with Giancarlo S. Ivoria. Do you scrutinize the Italians the same way you're scrutinizing the Hispanos? Maybe you missed the show you weren't watching. Frank Corona's in Spanish. Frank Corona's in Spanish. We basically scrutinize him on here. I'm sorry. You guys are in charge. You guys are the one dropping the ball right now. And if the Italians come back in, we'll scrutinize them as well. If they're doing the same shady shit that you guys are doing. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll choose. I got no problem.
Absolutely. Doesn't matter. We're not discriminating here. Everybody gets some. Everybody gets some. Everybody. Ask John Chell. Is John Chell Spanish? I didn't know he was Spanish. Ask John Chell. Is Kaz Daughtry Spanish? Oh, I didn't know that. Is Dermot Shea Spanish? No? Oh, all right. Yeah. So, yeah. No, we don't discriminate. Everybody gets a little. So just, again, more of the trolls sitting here trying to defame us, say that we're racist, paint us out to be something we're not. The truth hurts. Truth hurts. IP's corrupted. The entire upper echelon of the New York City Police Department is compromised. They're low integrity. If they had any shame, they would have stepped down. If this doctor had any shame, he wouldn't be a doctor any longer either. These people are disgusting. Monday live at 8:05. Appreciate you guys. And here we'll leave you off with the illustrious Kaz Daughtry.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community, but who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888-901-BLUE. That's 888-901-BLUE.